Live. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry for the delay. I had gone to get a drink and I was like, I have time. And then I didn't have time. Sorry for that.
Yeah, we have tried to experiment with like shortening the intro time
Yes.
and and now we've gone from like 5 to 7 minutes to like 20 to
20,
30 seconds.
20
So it's kind of
milliseconds.
hard.
So I just brought the whole thing. I was like, I'll just fill it up as I'm back in my spot. Oh, okay. Well,
We love
this,
how healthy you are, by the way. Just we love it.
thank you. This is actually vodka. I'm just kidding. That's a Rachel Hollis joke.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
Rachel always slaps. Has
She,
she ever considered becoming a comedian? Like, I wonder.
I'm sure. I'm sure she has. I'm sure if she hasn't, it's on her list of things to do this year.
Yeah.
Goals to accomplish 2023.
Do you do goals or do you do like the New Year's resolutions?
Um, I don't know. I write down like loose goals, I guess, in my little notebook that I have. But I don't usually like revisit them very often. Like once in a while I'll write something down and look back, or I'll, revisit it. And some of the goals I hit unexpectedly sort of, and then some I didn't. So I try not to like get too upset if I don't accomplish something.
It's everything takes so much longer than a year, I noticed. Like
Yeah.
it's just 1 year is not a lot of time actually.
No,
Um,
not at all.
yeah. I was told I was doing it wrong, I think, because I do goals. And I tend to do like 5 to 7 per year in like multiple areas of life, whatever.
That's good.
And then I was told that's not what you should do. You should do resolutions. And I'm like,
It's the same
this
thing,
is
isn't it?
apparently not. Like
Oh.
apparently resolutions are more like I should be a better person, and my goals are like get my degree.
Okay, that makes sense. So you can, no matter what, if you want to say like, well, I did sort of improve my education, it's easier to feel more accomplished at the end of it.
I suppose. I don't know. I don't do resolutions.
I
Do you
have I
guys
have
in
my
the comments
goals
do it? Ooh, oh wow. Okay,
right at the
wow.
ready. 2022 goals. I hit a couple of them. Learn how to camp was one of them. So I don't know if I would say I learned how to camp, but I did go camping. So that was
Learn how
one.
to camp.
Yes. And then
You don't need to
travel.
learn how to camp. Like you have Google.
I wanted to experience it, just like one time in a tent outdoors, and I did it. So that was good.
That's
Traveled
fun.
to 3 new places. I did that.
No, nice.
Yeah. One is make new friends. I did that
Oh, yay.
with Cam specifically, and only her. I'm just kidding. One of them was, this is like not sad, but it's like, oh, I didn't hit it. Was hit 15,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I'm 2,000 short, but that's okay. It was still a very
It's
good
hard
year.
though. It's hard, I will say.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you get stuck at like a number.
Hmm.
It's hard to kind of break through, but it's gonna happen. And don't worry, once it happens, it's just like skyrockets, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's my 22, 23 goals. 1 zillion subscribers. Infinity. Yeah. Let's see. Practice yoga regularly. I did not do that. I did not at all. I've probably practiced 6 times all year.
I thought you fell out of love with the whole yoga situation
Lifestyle. Yeah,
because of self-help and stuff.
definitely. I have. I still like it. I feel like I went the other day actually to a yoga class, and it felt so good to stretch, especially doing rock climbing. It's like the best thing to like get a stretch in, but like all the other extra stuff is what I'm turned off by still, is like okay, we're all here together, and afterwards like join my, one-on-one cult. I'm like, oh God, like I just want
Yeah.
to go for the
Open your
exercise.
chakra and your
Yeah.
wallet, please.
Yeah, that part I'm like, I just sort of like just whatever. I'm here for the stretch. That's it. And that's basically it. Yeah, I was like, work on being more eco-friendly. So that's like a resolution style, more develop more video skills. That's it. Make an investment. I didn't do that.
You did. You invest in your camera.
True, true. I meant like a investment account or something. Make like buy a
Oh,
stock or something.
I wouldn't know how to advise on those. I have a Vanguard account, I
Okay.
will say, which is like kind of fancy in Europe because we just got Vanguard pensions like about 2 years ago, because like Vanguard was not a thing in the UK for a long time.
Interesting.
And I was like, but Vanguard is the cheapest. So I'm just going to wait
Oh,
for them. Not that I had a
nice.
lot of money to put into a pension, but I
Yeah,
was like, yeah, I'm all
something.
about that cheap, 3.3% or whatever. I don't know what that is. I
I don't know
honestly
either.
don't know even if it is cheaper than anything else. But I just read somewhere probably, or like watch the YouTube video from one of the finance gurus on YouTube that are now all under fire.
You got
So
it
I
from
don't even know if
Sam Bankman-Fried's tips, how to
from Graham
invest today.
Stephan. Yeah. Graham Stephan, invest in FTX. I'm like,
Yeah,
great.
Bitcoin is the next investment I've heard. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Get
yep.
really heavily involved in crypto. If that was your goal in 2022, I'm sorry that was accomplished for you.
Yeah.
Ooh. Anyways,
I've had this like I don't have my notebook because it's in the UK, but I've had this like goal for several years in a row, because I have kept the same notebook for some. I have not written a lot in it, so I've had it. I have like the goals for the last 2 or 3 years in it, and I watched, like before I left, I watched like my goals for 2022, and one of them was on all of the lists before. It was to to post. Okay, so I had the first one back in 2019. I think it was like post 2 videos on YouTube a week.
geez.
2020 or whatever, 2020, 2021. Sorry, I didn't realize like years have just gone by so fast. 2021, I was like post 1.5 videos. I was like, need to get realistic here. Two
Yeah.
is too many. 1.5, did not do that. That was for 2 years in a row. And nope. In fact, I have posted 0.05 a week.
That's okay. That's all right. Goals are meant to be broken. Rules and goals are meant to be broken, I think, for your mental health and for your sanity and for other things that come up. I think it's okay.
Yeah. I just, it's very, I realized I relate a bit too hard to the ADHD TikToks, like way too hard. And
Like, is this a sign?
it's a sign. I might be one of those patients that goes like, by the way, I've seen this on TikTok. Can you guys diagnose me? But seriously, like nothing has ever landed like that. So it just makes so much sense, because sometimes I would have so much energy and I would be like, oh my God, I have this idea and I have this idea. And I would post like 2 or 3 in a week. Once I posted like 2 in a day, I was like, wow, okay.
You just get the bug and you're like, I can't stop. I'm going to just do it. That's
Yeah. And
good.
then I'm like, for a month now, I think I haven't posted. So, you know,
That's okay. You're
that being
here
said,
every week consistently on Cringe-Fluencers, and that's the most important thing.
yeah, yeah. And I like that. But also, I would say I've been having assessments and exams. So maybe that's also the reason.
Yeah, no excuses. Sorry. Please
Oh,
leave.
yes, I forget. Sorry.
Just kidding.
I
You're
forget like
allowed a
life,
break.
bills, and children and master's degrees are excuses in self-help. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you really wanted it, you would figure it out, says the woman with 12
Uh,
nannies and $1 million in the bank.
that's true.
We'll get there
Yeah.
one day in the next millennium.
Yeah.
Okay, so this topic, we're going to sort of switch into it, probably a much more serious mode here, just because the subject matter of today's topic is like super, super serious, in my opinion. And I don't want to focus too much on like, we're going to talk about what happened with this influencer, how it went down, the basics of like the tragedy that has occurred this week. But I don't want to focus on that too much of like the details as if this is like a true crime, podcast or something. What I want to focus on more is people's response to what happened, and just what happened was this influencer named tWitch is like his nickname. His real name is Stephen Boss, and he was a DJ on the Ellen Show for years and was an executive producer on Ellen before the show ended earlier this year. And he was on So You Can Think You Can Dance. He was on a bunch of like like talk shows and things. He sort of had a pretty successful influencer career in the space of dancing and hosting. That seemed to be his forte. And then also his family, his wife is a dancer. They met on the show, so you think you can dance, and they started to do content together, which is sort of, makes sense given all the that sort of plays perfectly into the social media space, right? So they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube, they're dancing, they're making content. They use their kids a little bit here and there. And at first I thought this was like a family vlogging channel, and I was sort of like confused. I was like, oh, I didn't know. Okay, like there's a whole element of that. But then when I actually looked into it, there wasn't. It's not really like that. It's more about the Twitch and his wife dancing on the YouTube channel. The kids are featured somewhat, but not as much as I thought originally. So let me bring up his Instagram. Hold on. And I had not heard of this person before, personally. Have you heard of this person?
No, and I don't know very much about it either. So it's obviously very sad news.
Yeah.
It's just kind of one of our people, if you will,
Yeah.
content creators. And I will say, like, just right off the bat, like, I guess one of the things that is just very sort of like obvious. I mean, I don't know if it's obvious, but you will tell me because you know more about this. But it just feels like the loneliness that people experience in like the world of influencing and like content creation is kind of being brought to the mainstream a little bit, because I think it's just so lonely to be a YouTuber. And this is why we created this channel, actually. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but both of us, we were talking about this back in the day when we had a collab about Dave Hollis. And since then, and we spoke about this, and we were both like kind of like, oh yeah, it's super lonely, so let's do something together. And that's why we started the channel. So yeah, that's a big conversation to have, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And it seemed like, they sort of had like collaborations. Like he has his wife is sort of part of the content, his kids. And I don't think I even got to my point earlier about what happened to him. So again, trigger warning, it's sort of in the title and, obvious at this point, but we're going to talk about suicide. We're going to talk about self-harm and depression and all those super serious, sad topics. So if that's not what you're here for, if you thought it was something else, just fair warning now. But he left his home and didn't tell his wife where he was going, checked into a motel and killed himself through a gun, shot himself in the head, according to the police and the coroner. And he, I guess, new details just came out, but he turned his phone onto airplane mode, didn't want to be contacted, I guess, left a note behind, and that's what happened. And his wife went to the police department because she couldn't get a hold of him and was concerned about him. And then at the same time that was happening, the motel staff at the motel where he checked into, they had tried to, do house cleaning, or like he didn't check out on time. And they're trying to get into the room, and they knocked on the door and he didn't answer. And then so they called the police, and then they found him there. But the coroner says it's, this is a whole separate thing that happens anytime anything happens. But, a lot of people online are saying, this doesn't seem right. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. Like nothing, no facts or nothing can ever be, and I'm someone who says like, think critically all the time. But it's also sort of offensive, I think, when you say, oh, I don't buy this, it's a murder, or it's a conspiracy theory. It's like, can you just let the family and this guy rest for a little bit before you start bringing up like conspiracy theories? But, that's going to happen with the internet. So what can you do?
Yeah. And I think it's because sometimes people forget that content and just like the things that you see from influencers is usually work. Like they usually
of course.
Hey, what's going
work
on, y'all?
on that item, whatever it is. they edit the thing, they post it. Sometimes they go live like we do, but at the end of the day, it's still like, even with like vloggers, even with like mm, people who seem to be giving you more of an insight into their life, it's still a niche that they're
Mm-hmm.
like, they can't really get that much out of their niche, and I'm trying to do that and I'm like losing. So, you know basically, the things that you see is just, first of all, it's just like a fraction of someone's life. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
small fraction of it. And even that is like work that
Yeah.
they've put work into it. They curated it, even when it's not necessarily curated in the way that, like some people do, where they just take out anything that wouldn't be relatable or whatever. Even if it's not like that, it's still like edited, it's still thought through before it's posted.
Sure.
And it's the intention behind it is to make money, to
Yeah, and that's what I think
work.
is the biggest thing that bothers me with this whole thing. I mean, there's a few things. It's number one is people making it about themselves, and even worse, I saw some influencers, and I'll find the clips that I cut, but it was like, oh, this wouldn't happen if the big pharmaceutical industry wasn't profiting from depression medication. Like, you're gonna make this guy's death about your, holistic life coaching business? Like, fuck off, Then that's this type of stuff that really bothers me, when it's like, okay, I'm an influencer, I'm going to take this thing that happened that's very real and brings, I think, a lot of reality to the social media space, the influencer space, the I'm making content based on, a version of reality, like a vlog family is a version of reality. It's somewhat realistic, but it's not, like you just said, fully the picture that, is of the human experience. I don't think anyone that I've ever seen has done it accurately. I think there's, especially when money's involved, like there's always an element of, how do I make this commercial, sellable? Like, you can't be naked in the shower on a vlog channel. So, even just that little element's not like the full picture of someone's life. But then to make it about yourself and about like, so if you want to sign up for my masterclass about, getting rid of trauma, like on the piggybacking off this story, like to me, it's just disgusting and horrendous, but also a sign of the times. Like, nothing is sacred anymore at all.
Yeah, this reaction is not okay, I will say. But also, what I want to add in terms of the content being edited and being curated and all that stuff, it's not always, with the intention. And
To
I watch
deceive.
some bloggers that I absolutely adore, and I don't think the curation of it is made always just to be like, oh, I want to hide some things, but maybe they're like not ready. They're like, I watch someone who, for example, has a relatively new boyfriend. She's not ready to share, who the boyfriend is, to put him in front of the camera. And that's just like, fair
That's
enough.
good.
That's her life.
Healthy.
Yeah. And of course,
Yeah.
people are asking her constantly in the comments, but she's not ready to share. So,
Yeah.
she will
Too
take
bad.
out clips that he's in. But also, oftentimes, and I do this with my own videos, oftentimes you edit for the purposes of making it snappier, making it more watchable, and just so that you guys are not bored when you're watching. Because if I was
Sure.
to watch a vlog that was a realistic life,
All
like
day
a
long.
day in the life,
Yeah.
like imagine how boring that would be.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the first time, if somebody was to post this, the first time would go viral like crazy. But like, it's boring. People are not gonna watch that.
Yeah.
Um, so I think sometimes it's just done for the audience. Just like, how do we make it so that they watch, so that they're not bored and they don't click away, etc. So it's not always like a terrible intention behind it.
That's a good point.
It's just the system. It's just how it is, really.
That's a good point. And I find that, like, coming from my perspective, I'm very much like, wary of all of this stuff now, and almost to the extreme side. Like, even talking about yoga, I think at a certain point, like, I'll come to the middle and go, okay, it's fine. Like, I'm not, stressing. But in the beginning, when I was first coming out of the self-help world, the personal development, spirituality, wellness space, where I was like very heavily into it, I swung completely the other way, and I was like, I can't even do yoga any longer because I feel so betrayed by, what happened. And then you swing kind of in the middle. So I feel like there's usually like I will look at something and go, vlogging, bad, all of it's bad, never should do it again. But then over time, it's like, yeah, they're like relative. There's ways to do it well. There's ways to do it okay, to protect yourself. It's not like this black and white situation. So I think it's good when you point stuff out like that. It helps me. And when people comment about it too, I'm like, oh, good point. Like I do have blind spots when it comes to those certain things. So I think it's good when other people point it out. Okay. So this is like their YouTube channel. They have, I don't know if this has grown since, the news came out or whatnot, but this is like their family YouTube channel. They have a TikTok. He had a TikTok and she has a TikTok. And they did a lot of collaborations and things. And again, it was like you said, sort of like, like doing dances in their house. Maybe it's sponsored by a company, maybe it's not. They did certain vlogs, but it's very much like family positive channel hosting, that sort of thing. And that's where I think people got the impression that everything was perfect in this family's life, and because both of them, the whole family, their affect is very positive. Hey, what's up, guys? We're here to do the dance challenge. We're here to show you this and that. And, that was very much the style. And that's why people are utterly shocked that this happened. Like they can't wrap their brain around it. That's someone who has this type of content and seemed to be succeeding at it. It's not like someone had this type of content and failed epically and they, got upset about it. This is someone who has taken this career very far, financially successfully, has been able to penetrate into the mainstream media as well with like the Ellen and I mean, I guess he started on mainstream media and then sort of now is did the social media side. But I think that's why people are more shocked than, let's say, an Anthony Bourdain, which was shocking as well. But, he sort of was open about his struggles with mental health.
Yeah, and I think this is where the conversation of toxic positivity is so relevant because this is so... I feel like we talk about this and we both have talked about this for years. And it's so shocking to me because I feel like I know so much about it and I see it so clearly. And it's so incredibly shocking to me that it's still super like intense like force in society.
Yeah.
Where you can't, it's not that you can't, sorry.
You're
it's
good.
not that you can't like.
Okay. Let's go put on mute. This is him just putting in the background. You can see what type of content they're making.
So what I was going to say is that it's not necessarily that you can't share about struggles or mental health, but it's sometimes very badly received. Like I have done that when I was, angry with my ex or something and I would post something and I lost friends. Like they literally don't talk to me anymore. Those friends don't talk to me. And it's like, when that sort of thing happens, obviously like you learn your lesson and you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to be honest about this anymore. Like,
sure.
I'm just going to share what's good and that's it. So sometimes it's so insidious and so it just kind of takes over, and it's not that I didn't want to share because there were like lots of things that, I would have liked to talk about, but whatever. I didn't do it after that because I was like, I don't want to lose another 2 friends because of this.
That's exactly the point that I want to make during this stream. And I think that will be made whether I want to or not. It's when this happened. So the news coverage has been immense, on all the daytime shows because he's been on a lot of those shows, like those morning shows, like Good Morning America, the Today Show, CBS Morning News, or CBS Early Morning, I guess is what it's called now. So they were, aware of him on a personal level. And every single media, not even interview, but a media story about this has been ended with, you really never know what's going on with people. You should call your friends and here's the suicide hotline. And I find that to be not enough. And I feel like it's a pat on the back. This is a hot take, so buckle up. I feel like that is a pat on the back for people who don't, like you said, don't want to really hear about what's going on. Because also they're not a professional, so I get that as well. Like, what can they do to help you? But I feel like just to end your segment with, make sure to call those people in your life that may need help. Okay, but when that is in actual practice, what's the next step? And then they give the suicide hotline. And I think that there has been statistics that show it works. But that's like saying, put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, like if you're at the point where you need to call the hotline, there is probably a lot. That's not the solution. That's not like, okay, I'm saved now. Thank you. I can go now back to my job on Monday. Like that is the beginning of, I need to go through, surgery and rehab to repair this issue, whatever the issue may be. I don't even know what the bullet wound is yet, like, and I mean that metaphorically, like, you don't even know what you need to fix yet. And I just find it to be, and I know it's a news segment and it's short and you don't have time to go in depth, but I just find it to be unsatisfactory to the reality of the situation. Like, let's talk about mental health more and not like mental health awareness. We're fucking aware. We need to figure out how to help people. That is not call a phone number or call your friend, when in reality, we know that doesn't really do much unless you're in a crisis already. Like, let's not get to the crisis point. How do we do that?
And also that it doesn't work because of the amount of lonely people we have who don't have friends. And I don't know if you remember, but maybe like 6 months ago or a year ago, there was this trend of, I hate to call it a trend, but it became a trend on YouTube of people posting videos saying something like, I'm 21 and I have no friends. I'm 19 and I have no friends. And there were so many videos. And I'm sure that some of them jumped on the trend just for the sake of numbers. Sure. But I believe most of them, and I can see it in my own life because, like, I moved countries recently. Like, I'm not surrounded by my support system. It's new people that I'm interacting with. It's hard to create those new friendships, etc.
Sure.
So it's very lonely, and that was really. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But I feel like that's what the news segment failed. They're like, call your friends. But what if you don't have friends when you're like struggling? What if you don't have
reach
anyone?
Out for help? Okay, but what are they going to do?
What if you don't have anyone that you're gonna feel comfortable to open up to? Because I now have lots of people around me in England doing my master's degree, but I don't feel like I can just call them and be like, oh, by the way, I'm going through the major crisis right now. I think they'll be like, this is weird. So
yeah, and you do feel like it's like you need to get a hold of your mental health. And I don't think that's the wrong message necessarily. Like, I don't think you should depend on a spouse or depend on a random stranger to fix you in some way. Like, I'm not suggesting that, but I just, I don't know. There's something missing between like the advice that's being given out now and the reality of the situation, are people who have experienced this type of loneliness, this type of thoughts before. And as someone, I will say, who's experienced not, obviously at this level of extremity, but like, have gone down that path and start to think like, what is the point of all of this? And how do I fix this? It's not like, oh, I'm going to watch TV and I'm just going to call somebody and tell them I'm feeling like, suicidal today. Like, that would never. The whole point is, well, to me, and I shouldn't speak for everyone, but like a big part of feeling, this way, it's like I'm a burden to everyone around me. My existence is like harder. It's not enjoyment for anyone. And it's actually hard for me too. So I'll just like help everybody by leaving the situation. So now you're asking me to call somebody and like put more burden on them. Like, I just don't I think there needs to be, my thought would be, okay, there needs to be like places you can go 10 months before you start to have that extreme feeling where I'm sort of struggling to make friends, deal with daily, mental issues, that I can like start to deal with these problems earlier, that doesn't cost me $10,000 a session.
Yeah, yeah. And that, oh gosh, that will always bring me back to like systemic change. Like always, like I feel like there's some things in the education system across the board. Like this is not about a specific country, but across the board, we don't have any education on some of the most important things that really like exist in life, which is mental health and finances. Like your
Yeah.
personal finances are so important. Nobody teaches you. Like they will teach you if you go to and study finance, and even then I think that they teach you about like the system at large or whatever. I don't think they teach you how to save for yourself or something. But they don't teach these things that are like so super important to everyone. Like why isn't there mental health education since like kindergarten? Why isn't it, why do we have a class on drawing and there's no class on mental health?
Well, I think the real answer to that is drawing is neutral. Mental health is a hot button issue. Half the country in this country believes that it doesn't exist, like that everyone who says they have depression is lying or wanting or seeking attention, and that, you know, people used to back in the day just not have mental illness, as opposed to were unaware or just repressed any sort of feelings. Ever.
Like, and can I just say also, like, I don't mean to say that art is bad.
I know. I think everyone
I,
is.
I love, I'm not an artist, like, but I love art. So, but I will say, like, mental health issues are debilitating. Like, I
Yes.
had such rough patches. Like, I will say, I'm not the best person at opening up, and especially on the internet, but I had moments. I remember years ago when I was in Scotland, and I was working freelance, so that meant I was working whenever, like one day every few days or something. Like I didn't have like a daily schedule, and my ex would go to work in the morning and I would sleep until 3 p.m. and then like around 3 or 4 p.m. because I was trying to sleep away the day
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And around 3 or 4 p.m. I would wake up and have a shower because I didn't want him to know just how bad things were, just
Mm-hmm.
how depressed I was. And I did that for months and months and months. Like I would just want to sleep the days away, and that was such deep depression, and I did not know. Like I only realized I was depressed like years after that. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And again, like you think like, well, is this severe? Do I need to go seek help like inpatient? Like how severe is this? I have no idea. And you don't know because it's like, it's sort of like you don't know until you're in it. Like, oh, do I need a
And I
therapist?
was embarrassed.
Yeah,
I was embarrassed. I thought
of
I was
course.
lazy and unmotivated, and I was so embarrassed that even
Yeah.
my ex, who was part of my daily life, he did not know how bad that was. I was embarrassed in front of him. I was like, he can't possibly see just how disgustingly lazy I am,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody explains really what does it mean. Like, you know, like even with all this mental health awareness that we think we have, like we still don't know what
No.
these mean. And for me, what it meant, it was like I did not want to live my days. I just did not want to wake up in the morning and, you know, take on the day and whatever. I just wanted to sleep it away. Just hopefully it goes away if I just don't wake up. Like literally, it was
Mm-hmm.
literally like that for at least 6 months. And in
Yeah.
my circle of friends and so on, like everyone was like, you know, relatively educated people who went to uni and stuff. um yeah, I was not comfortable to talk to anyone about it. I was just so embarrassed because, and even I was, you know, I consider myself to be an educated person, and I was not aware that's
Mm-hmm.
what depression was. I was just like, just wow, how lazy am I? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel very similarly. And I feel like, again, like you look on the internet, I think that's where a lot of people end up going, and you search some of these things, and then you come across someone like Teal Swan who knows that these people that are out there are kind of on their own with these feelings. And then all of a sudden now you could be getting involved in a cult, or you could be getting involved in some sort of crazy thing. So you have to be very protective about who you talk to and what you're looking up, and all these factors, that all the, like, if you share with the wrong person, could they mislead you into trying to hospitalize you? I mean, that's something I've dealt with my mom. Okay, roll my eyes. She said, like, when I started to try to deal with my mental health issues, now at the time I was with a life coach, and it turns out, I ended up going on a different path regardless. So not that she was totally wrong at, whatever, but my mom, like, because I was trying to be more open about some of the struggles I had been going through, she's like, oh, it must be because you're with a life coach. She's putting all these thoughts in your head. You need to be hospitalized. You need to be, like, put away and, like, dealt with this because you are mentally ill. And she started telling that to me. And that's sort of what, I don't think I've talked about this in full detail, but that's what sort of precipitated us not speaking, because I could not, like, reckon with the fact that I was going to lose my freedom because I was expressing myself that I have depression from time to time, and I wasn't even telling her the full story. So I think, again, like, yes, it'd be wonderful to tell your friends and family, but sometimes family is also toxic as fuck and are probably causing some of the issues that you may have. And now you're sharing because someone told you, like, you should share your mental health issues with people, and now they're using it as leverage to be able to control you. And they're like, they know it's embarrassing, so it's like, I'm going to tell people that you have mental illness if you don't do what I want to do, or I'm going to put you away and have, be your medical authority on your life. I mean, this is a very extreme case, and I realize that in my situation, but it doesn't mean that other people aren't experiencing it or have that fear too. Like, if I open up to people who I'm supposed to trust, they might change and our relationship may change. And I think that's a real fear for a lot of people.
I've seen it on TikTok as well. People just, they make it funny because, there's some sort of sound at the, I don't know if it's at the moment or it's just the kind of talk I'm on, but there's a sound that's going on, and it's like, they're like saying, oh, if I told my therapist, I can't tell my therapist everything, because if I told them, they would just,
put me away.
And it's hilarious, really, when you watch it with the sound and, they're like thinking and all that stuff. It's funny, but, like, I think it has a level of truth to it. Like,
people
do feel like, just reel it in, because who knows, like, what might happen.
Yeah. And I think people who are, if you're too open about it, they will take possibly, action against you, as opposed, but it's like, if you tell someone, okay, like, for example, like, even if you tell a therapist, like, I'm going to hurt somebody or yourself, like, they have a legal obligation to, take that information and do something with it so that you don't hurt yourself. Not everyone has that legal obligation, but some people think they do. I used to think if someone told me they were going to hurt themselves, that I was required to call the police. Now, I don't know where I learned that from or where I got that, like, idea from, but I thought, like, oh yeah, like, they disclosed to me they're going to hurt themselves, I need to, like, call the authorities immediately, which is not true. It's only if you have a certain career that you are like I think it's like something reporter, like, you have to, if you're a teacher or if you're someone in that space where you have a position of power, or a doctor, you are supposed to, legally, you're obligated to warn somebody. But I think there's a lot of, like, okay, like, again, going back to the mental awareness, health awareness, it's like same thing when I think of, like, breast cancer awareness. People are aware. We all know at this point that people in this world have breast cancer. Everyone in this world knows that mental health is a thing. Now let's take it to step 2. Now, like, we all know it exists. Now, how do we help people best? And we never get past that first wave of media coverage ever. And it's very frustrating. Mandated reporter. Yes, thank you, Lisa and Ife.
I feel like people don't know that much, though. I mean, maybe it's just sometimes I think just because, I don't know, if you, like, I mentioned something to my mother too about being depressed. She started crying.
Ugh.
She started crying and just talking about, like, how
can you do this
she
to me?
struggled so much to raise us and stuff. And I was there being like, what the hell? It's just like, what's going on? And I don't think she understands that my mental health does not necessarily how to do well, maybe maybe it does. I don't know, it depends on who you ask. If you ask my mother, my mental health does not have anything to do with her raising me, but it will make her cry anyway. So
It's frustrating.
not sure. Yeah, like I would not be able to speak to like my parents, or even just people in like, not just my parents, but I feel like anyone in or not anyone, gosh, I'm making it sound so bad, like lots of people in the generations above us are
Hmm.
not, they don't care. Or like if you tell them, they'll be like, oh, but it's gonna be fine, don't worry, like, don't worry too much, don't worry about it.
That's what I'm saying. Like the actuality of the situation is where I struggle because it's like, okay, in practice, yes, of course. Tell your friends and family, ask for help. Always ask for help. That sounds like a great message to promote. It sounds simple. It's like saying no to drugs. Say no to drugs. Easy. It's so easy, guys. There's a yes and there's a no. And when you're presented with the option of taking heroin, say no. And then you will have a life of, trickle down economics. That would be wonderful. But it's not that simple. Again, this is a perfect example, I think, is drug use. If drug use was bad people do drugs and good people don't do drugs, that would be wonderful if that was true, because then you would easily see what good people are, what bad people are. And it was always at a party when you were 15 and the big old scary drug dealer is holding their coat open and saying, hey, little children, like, come on, do you want a temptation, like, the snake in Eden? That's what people make it seem like. And if you really look at it like a fucking critical adult, it's like, obviously there's so many different factors as to why drugs have happened in the first place. Okay, now apply that same logic to depression and suicide. It's the same exact thing. There's not one type of person. If someone's crying hysterically every single day, it doesn't mean like, oh, that guy's headed for, suicide. This person that we're talking about today was like the happiest, quote unquote, person you've ever seen. Everyone has like positive stories about him saying like, oh yes, this guy was, 100% perfect. It's like, maybe that expectation is part of the problem that caused him to not be able to seek help in the way that would be acceptable, because people would be disappointed that even someone like him struggles with mental health.
Yeah, and also I think um often, some, at least with depression, like I think anxiety can sometimes be a bit more obvious, because sometimes
Sure.
you're like physically like anxious, so people can see it. I will pick at my nails, like like it's very obvious when I feel anxious, but that's not necessarily for everyone. But sometimes with anxiety you can see it. But with depression, especially if it's chronic depression, you learn to live with it. So you kind of like, you just go through your day and you know what you got to do, and you do the thing. And you, when you see someone, when you meet someone, you smile at them and you speak to them, but you're still like depressed, like you're not,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going through the motions, you're not feeling it, you're just kind of, so it becomes just, okay, I have to like behave this way in order to just kind of get through my day, and that's it. And
Yeah.
the thing, that's what I'm thinking was the case here. He was just kind of going through his day doing the socially acceptable thing of like saying hello and smiling at people or whatever, and
That's what they want.
having the conversations and whatever. But like, but it doesn't mean that and things like this also don't go away. Like, you get to feel better, and I'm sure that there's like lots of different types of help for it. But I don't believe, like, I've had medication for depression, I've had therapy, I'm having therapy at the moment, and I've lived with it for so long. It doesn't go away, really. Like,
Mm-mm.
it's just there, and you kind of need
Just
to
manage
learn
it.
to ride the wave a little bit. Just kind of
Mm-hmm.
see what you can do. Like, if you can identify it when it's getting bad, and you know what to do, then it's better. But that takes so
Yeah.
long, because it took me so long to even know that I had it. So for me to be able to be like, oh, I predict a wave of depression is coming. Like, that is
And I'm just going to
insanely
hit the
hard.
gym so I don't feel it or something. Yeah, I'm going to take my supplements that this influencer told me cures depression to make sure I don't have a depressive episode. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do because now I'm aware. It's like, good luck.
Yeah, and it's so complex. It's such a mental health is such a complex like topic, and it's related to everything. It's related to what you eat, it's related to what you drink, it's related to everything. It's just, I don't know. It is extremely hard, I think, to find. Most times I feel that when we talk about these things, we talk about symptoms. We talk about like, oh, this is what they're doing. The symptoms are the result. It's the end of it. Like, it's like the result for me was that I wasn't sleeping, but that was not the cause of the situation. That was not
Yeah.
like the underlying decade long struggles that I was having that were, and oftentimes when people ask, when a situation like this happens and people ask about it, they want to be able to pinpoint at something, because that would make it make sense. And then you go like,
Yeah.
oh, something happened in his life, he lost his job or whatever, so he was really upset. That makes sense. Okay, that would, and you want to make sense of it because you want to go like, that's not me.
Yep.
It's not going to happen to me because it makes sense because this happened to him because of that. But then when it doesn't make sense, you're like,
People
oh
can't
shit,
comprehend. That's why they
it
go,
can
it
happen
must be
to
a
me.
murder. Yeah. They can't deal with it.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I think that's I think that's like spot on. It's like, I think that's why when someone would come to you before anything happens and say, I'm depressed, you go, you're just going through a rough time. It'll be all right. Because you can't imagine a world in which this person is not okay in your life. It would interrupt your reality.
Yeah, and it puts some responsibility on you, and you don't want that. And I feel like that's also a conversation worth having. And I know, like, at which point does your responsibility really end? Does your responsibility end with people that may not be that close with, or whatever, or even people that you are close with? But
Yeah.
of course, it's again very complicated and a case by case situation.
Sure.
But I do think that we can all collectively do a little bit better and have those conversations, even when it's interrupting my breakfast or my lunch or something. Like, if somebody is struggling, like, I don't have time for this should not be appropriate,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Or I can't think of this right now, or like, like, whatever, I have a meeting, like, I know I know it's complicated, and it's again case by case. But if
have you tried
that
walking outside?
happens,
Have you tried
like, yeah, have you
walking?
tried running? Like, my ex made me run for 3 months because of that. Like,
Did it work?
well, I mean, I never got to love running, so I mean, I did enjoy it, but like, I didn't like running that much, so I stopped.
So
The
maybe
depression is
not.
still there though, years later.
That's always the
So.
first suggestion is like, have you tried running? God, please save
And I
me.
will say though, like, exercise is good because
Yeah.
it does help with like endorphins, and just kind of, I spoke about this with a friend, um when we were, and that's, for example, a situation in which both of us were open about it, and it was not, we were on a hen do in Paris, so that was not the situation where everyone would have liked to talk about like things that bum you down,
And
like,
that's a bachelorette party for anyone who's not from Europe, by the way.
yes, or UK rather.
UK,
But yeah,
sorry.
bachelorette party, and this girl told me about her mental health issues, and I was sharing mine, and she told me that she was very fit, and she told me that the only thing that helped her was going to the gym. She had like extreme anxiety and stuff, and she said that just that was the only thing that was helping her, and antidepressants. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, what, we were taking the same thing, but I think I was
Anxiety.
taking it for depression, she was taking it for anxiety.
Zoloft.
Yeah, the Zoloft, the
Yeah, that's what
sertraline
helped
is
me
what it's
too.
called.
Yeah, honestly, that's been my way to deal with it too is Zoloft and working out and therapy. And I think the therapy is the component that because like my whole life basically has been about like conserve or like you said, like riding the wave and trying to like make sure I don't have panic and detailing my whole life so that I'm not in those panic inducing situations as little as possible. And the only thing I did was work out when I started to feel anxious and take Zoloft I took Prozac when I was younger. Or like a Klonopin when I was like very panicky, like in the moment panicky. But the third element that I've included in the last 2 years is the therapeutic element of like the CBT, not CBD, CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy, where you're talking to a therapist about the root of your issues potentially or causes of stress or whatever. But normally it comes down to childhood a lot of times in my experience.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't want to look at that either. And they're like, well, I had a great childhood and I can't, muddle that up in my brain. But as soon as I did that, because it had gotten so bad, I was like willing to try. I'm like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And then it all sort of, for me, that doesn't like all make sense, but it helps me now feel like I'm not going to live a whole life of just trying to maintain my symptoms, that maybe there's hope that I could get past it to a point where I'm sort of not like, it's always going to be there potentially, but my whole life doesn't have to revolve around it. And the only thing that like got me to think that was therapy, personally.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And I was talking about this with my sister because I'm now in therapy, and she was saying, oh, she would not like to go to therapy because what if they tell her that she might have some trauma and stuff? And I'm like,
You happen
well,
either way, possibly. Yeah.
I guess that's one way to deal with it. Just like, ignorance is bliss, which I think if you can pull ignorance is bliss, do it because that's the cheapest option. Um,
Yeah.
but for me, it was not so easy. And basically, I think the combination that you're talking about is so helpful because, well, first of all, the exercise helps you in the moment, and it's like it's physical. It's a physical sensation that it's changing your body in the moment. The medication is helping with your symptoms, and the therapy is helping with the cause of the issue. So
Yeah.
you're attacking it from 3 angles
Mm-hmm.
instead of just medicating
The symptom.
the symptom, because the,
Yeah.
the symptom is the end result. So you gotta find out, like if you can,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta find out where it all started, and and then start from there and see what you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And I realized that that's a huge privilege that I have in my life that came because I have a partner who is financially stable, because I have a job that has now allowed me to, make enough money to support myself as well. And I have the time to go. I don't have kids. I don't have a job where I'm sitting there for 12 hours a day. So thankfully, my worlds and stars, the retrogrades have aligned for me to allow me to even have this opportunity to deal with all these issues. Millions upon millions of people will never get that chance, and it's like I don't want to take that for granted. And so if anyone sort of like brings that up to me and says like, well, I don't want to go because of whatever, but they can, I just try to like say that in a nice way. It's like, you have such an opportunity here to experience something that like so many people will never, and your life could potentially be better for it. So it's like, just do it. If you're on the fence about it, is always my advice. Because it's
Yeah, and
not
that's
cheap.
the situation with Gabby Hanna, right? Because I feel like that is the reason why I wanted to talk about it when it happened, because she is in a privileged position where she could
Mm-hmm.
seek help.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think she said she had a therapist, but she was dropping the therapist. I don't even remember. The situation was so complicated that
Yeah.
I kind of
She said
lost track after a while.
the therapist didn't understand internet drama, which I guess I could understand, but I'm sure there's one out there in the world that would understand like what
But
that
does the
means.
therapist need to understand internet drama, or they need to just get her to understand why she's
Psychology.
so upset about it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
Her
point. Yeah. Well, I've heard in the past that some people, if you're, and the big thing is like people of color, and I've heard this argument before. It's like if you're a white therapist and your patient is a person of color, they might not comprehend the daily life of someone that's going through life as a minority in the United States, like how it feels to walk into certain places and be judged or to not have the same opportunities with different social groups and whatever. And so I've heard a lot of people, they want to find other minorities like that are like them, or the LGBTQ plus, like they want to find someone. And I think at first that wasn't really accepted. I don't believe, like in the therapy space, it was more like you said, like, well, does it really need to be, do you have to understand the whole breadth of life to help somebody? And I think that's sort of changing now, because I've seen sort of the conversation switch into find a therapist that you feel comfortable with and that you can understand you. And it takes a little while to get that going. But then again, that's the second factor, is like, okay, you finally made the choice. It's already a hill to climb to get there where you want to walk in the door. And now you got to go through several of them till you find, it's like that 20-step process is much harder, but it is worth it. I think if you do end up finding one you like that can understand your worldview.
Yeah, I agree. I did bring up some cultural things in therapy, and I was lucky that my therapist's reaction was not like, "Oh my God, that sounds
That's
insane,"
not
or like,
real. Yeah.
like the reaction was like, "Yeah, there's probably there's probably a different way of living, like where you come from." So I was like, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
she wasn't able necessarily to understand it, but like she was listening, and that was good.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's all important. And, again, there's no one size fits all for any of this. Any of this conversation too may apply to me and you, or just me, or just you, or no one at home. And that's okay. And that's part of it too. It's like we're trying to simplify an incredibly complex, blogs, a million books, and, it's still going to be a unique experience for you.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch this one specifically, our favorite Gayle King. I don't know why I'm like drawn to CBS Morning News whenever I'm covering anything. It's like sort of the place that they provide the most like dialogue, and sometimes I'm critical of it and sometimes I'm like enjoying it. But here we go again, the CBS Morning News show. And this is like one of the first, they didn't have all the information that there is now about like the note and that this is like one of the first stories that came out about it. So I just thought it was interesting. We can kind of watch and react to it.
This morning, the shocking loss, and shocking is the word here, of dancer and entertainer Stephen "tWitch" Boss. He was best known for his involvement with the shows Ellen and So You Think You Could Dance. He was very popular on both of those. The LAPD says Boss died by suicide on Tuesday. He was only 40 years old. Errol Barnett tips a look back on the life of a man known for his ever-present smile and seemingly boundless energy.
I love your dance moves.
Oh, thank you. I love your dance moves too.
A pillar of positivity and motivation. Stephen.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. A pillar of positivity and motivation. That stuck out to me because he was that even now. But they're going to sort of present it as he was a pillar of positivity, but secretly he was upset. It's like you can be both, and it's unfair to force the narrative on him on Twitch that and I don't know, I'm not going to speculate what he was thinking, but I can imagine someone in his position feeling that pressure to always perform and always be positive. You know how hard that is? I can't get through a day without me either, saying a snide comment or like wanting to. And I'm not in the public spotlight whatsoever. So it's like, I just feel like even in the aftermath of this, we're still putting this immense pressure on him. Like he was the positive light of this world. It's like, that's a hard thing to maintain for 40 years,
Yeah, I agree. And I also think it's like, it's exhausting to be positive to me. Like not always, not constantly, like there are moments in my best, moments of the day or something around 4 p.m. But I would say like it's just hard because and especially when there's I don't get it. Like whenever I hear someone like talking about something that they're having difficulties or with or something, like I used to dismiss it. I used to be like, oh, it's just a phase, or you whatever, like like for example, if somebody was like 17 or 18 and they had a breakup and whatever, I would say, I would have said something along the lines of, oh, you don't even know real love. Like once you get to, like really experience love, like you'll don't worry about it. Like, you know what I mean?
Then you'll complain for real. Yeah.
But I had a classmate in uni who killed herself because of a breakup. And she was 17, 18. I don't remember. I think we were 18 when that happened. So after that, like I would have never, because like whatever it is, even if it seems like a small thing, an insignificant thing to you, if that is too much for that person to handle in that
Yeah.
moment, they can, like they might actually go through it. So for her, whatever it is, that relationship, even if it was a few months, whatever it was too hard to deal with it, to the point where she actually killed herself. And even if I was there to say, oh, you haven't even experienced, like what would that do if I
Yeah.
was to say you haven't experienced like proper love, when you are properly in love with someone? That might have been true, but still that person can't handle that in the moment. That is a lot for them. So
And I think it makes me feel like how I talk about celebrities or people who are rich, and I feel like I need to check myself a little bit more, because I'll often take, and I think it's the same thing where if like my mentality just goes, swings one way or the other, and I commit to it, but then I can feel like, 6 weeks later, I'm like, actually, I don't believe that anymore. But with like talking about celebrities and rich people, I'm like, oh my God, like you're going to complain about that now? You live in a mansion and you have this and that, like shut up. And I do believe that to a certain point, like depending on the situation, like what they're complaining about. But at the same time, to think that, well, once you reach a certain level of success financially or, commercially or capitalistically, that now you can never complain or have a grievance in your life is unfair. And I feel like because I'm in a position where I'm like the lower one on the spectrum, I'm like, well, I'm free to say whatever I want. And I don't know if that's what I should continue to do. So this whole conversation has made me feel like, and reflecting on this too, it's made me think like, you don't, like if that was me, would I just cease to not have any problems anymore? Absolutely not. So how can I expect them to?
I don't think you do that though. I think you're quite fair in your critique of, people
Don't
who have money.
gaslight
Like,
me, Cam. No, just kidding.
But I think when we criticize people like Kathy Heller for complaining that some people unfollowed her for flexing $1 million or $10 million villa, like that's not them having a problem.
That's and that
like,
one I would reflect and go, I think that's fair. But like someone like Kanye going, oh, come on, like you don't have anything. It's like, I don't know. That's not true in that instance, or someone else that might have something to say, like they should never express it. It's sort of too far.
I don't know. Like, I don't think you've been unfair on Kanye either. Because like, I think, our conversations about money when it came to Kanye were very much about like Adidas dropping him or something, like, but he's just still a billionaire, or like just under a billionaire. So it's not like,
Sure.
Yeah.
But to say
that was not unrelated.
Yeah.
That was unrelated. Like the money is not related. Like there's plenty of people with bipolar disorder who don't have money. They still have bipolar. So
yeah, very true. Yeah, I know that's true. I just think it's maintaining empathy regardless of success, I think is important. Like, seeing the perspective, being able to fairly critique, because that's the point. I want to fairly critique everything if I can. I mean, I'm never going to reach that like perfection goal, but like to automatically enter into any sort of critique with the bias of, well, they're rich, so they have no problems, is not fair. So that's just what I take away from this.
Yeah,
in the
they're
future.
rich, but they don't have necessarily money problems or
Yeah.
poverty problems, but
Yeah, they
there's
still
other
have
problems
issues.
that one can have. Yeah.
And they still struggle. So nice. Good point.
Boss earned the nickname Twitch as a child because he never seemed to stop moving. A multi-talented and charismatic dancer, Boss was best known as the DJ and occasional host on Ellen DeGeneres' talk show. After performing in several seasons of So You Think You Can Dance.
Twitch, everybody.
Boss earned himself a guest DJ spot on Ellen back in 2013 before making the show his permanent home, providing the soundtrack and trademark energy for the show. In 2020, he was named co-executive producer. There is shock across Hollywood over Boss's death. Entertainment Tonight co-host Kevin Frazier.
He was a positive, shining ray of light.
Former first...
Sorry. That was my other one, that one. He was a positive ray of light. It's like, okay. Again, I just feel like they're pushing this on. This is my take again. I just feel like, and I don't mean this in a, please don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean this in a racist way, but like performing monkey. That's what it feels like. Like, that you are supposed to be over there dancing and making people happy. And that's what you're here to do. You're a positive light in this world. And that's all I want to see you as. Not a complex human being that's happy, sad, upset, angry, pissed, tempted by things. Like, it's just like, because we commercialize people's lives now, and it's not just he's a dancer and goes home and has a life. He's a dancer who now puts vlogs on. He's a dancer who now does TikToks with their home. Everyone knows their kids and their wife and the whole situation. But everyone just wants you to perform. It must be very hard to maintain that if that's not truly making you happy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's been a conversation that I came across about this sort of thing where basically people are like, yeah, we understand mental health, but like as you still have to go to work that day or the next day or whatever. And this was his work. His work was to post dancing content, to post like family positive content, and people didn't stop to think, oh, this isn't it and there's more like behind this. They just went, that's all. This is all. Like whatever we see is all that he is. And it's, yeah, you're right. Like we are complex. All of us are very complex people with a lot of different facets. Like, and we are never just one thing. And by the way, this segment, I just want to say, like, for the record, it's so annoyingly joyful.
Yeah.
Like I don't love how joyful this is.
It's a guy working. It's like as if you were to take, like, an accountant died by this way, and it was just him like crunching numbers, like different scenes of him crunching numbers at the computer. Like, this is a man working. This is not necessarily how he was in life. And I understand, like, that's a segment, you have to do it. But like, if you really think about it, it's like, this is not him, like, interacting with people naturally. So of course, like, if you're doing this and that, it's like, I can't imagine this guy had a negative thought. It's like,
yeah, like if you see me at a party and I'm dancing, it does not mean that I don't struggle with depression and anxiety and other things. Probably more the next day. So
yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the segment itself is sort of, I get what they're doing, but I think the media, especially traditional media, really does not take risks, really does not. They know sort of the narrative that's the safest route to take, and they take it every single fucking time, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that gets confusing with the internet, with social media, because again, like from Fabienne's point, like you when you watch a TV show or when you watch a movie, which is the traditional media, or when you watch the news, those people are there to work. They're not like, those actors acting, that's not them in the real life, like whatever. I want to think of an actor and I have nobody right now. Nobody's popping up. But
Brad Pitt.
Let's say, Jennifer Lawrence in Mother, like she's not, that's not, the character is not her, and you know that. And you go to the movies, you pay a ticket, you buy that, you know it's a performance, and you know that in their day-to-day life they're doing other things, they're whatever. But with social media, oftentimes the lines are blurred, because social media started with vlogs. It started with people sharing their lives. That was really generally how it just kind of blew up. It wasn't, that was the sort of little thing that social media had to bring to the table that was different than traditional media. It was no longer these people acting for you, and everything is produced with lights and scripts and cameras and directors, and directors of wardrobe and directors of makeup and everything. It's no longer that, and now it's just, this is a real person's life, and you're watching them in their bedroom. And it I can't really blame people too much for thinking that, but at the same time, knowing as a content creator how we make the content and stuff, you gotta leave things out. You're never gonna be able to share everything.
No. And I think the more that that this develops, like what you said, like directors and lighting and all that, that does come in to play. Like you start to have someone who's producing your content for an audience, with a specific niche in mind, with a certain person that they, not to always bring Rachel Hollis into everything, but here we are. When she talks about an Ohio mom, like a soccer mom from Ohio, and Rachel would always talk about, I talk to her. My audience, or my voice is to her. My stories are for her. It's like the her doesn't exist. That's a concept of what she's created as who her audience is. So when she's sharing a story about her, I don't know, peeing her pants at a museum, she's saying like, okay, this is for my, audience who's going to be, receiving this or whatever. Even though it's supposed to be a story she's sharing about her life and it's just off the cuff, there is much strategy involved in what she shares and how she shares it. And I think that's true for any of these people now, especially when they get success. They can afford to hire people who have strategic, partnerships in mind. That's not reality either. So the more that even though you're starting with the premise of this is a more raw, real medium than movies, I think it almost is worse now that we're at this point where it's highly produced and highly thought through. And it's almost like we're getting now, like, this is so random, but like, the Barbie series, like the cartoons that Barbie does. There's like Barbie cartoons that they're making it look like Barbie sitting at her computer desk with a messy room behind her recording like YouTube content. So the highly produced videos are now being manufactured to look low budget, because that is like a relatable thing for people. But it's like, again, like none of this is fucking real. And that's what I think we have control over. I don't mean you, and no one has control over the media landscape. We can't, it's impossible. But we have control about discernment and keeping in mind that nothing that we see is real ever, most likely. And I don't mean like if you see like a video from Ukraine that it's not real, it's doctor. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like, when it comes to the entertainment space.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Excellent point. And I will say it's very annoying that we had this good thing and we had this, new social media with like vulnerable people sharing their life and just you being able to see someone in their daily life. It was such a big thing. And we had to take it and ruin it. We had to take it and put it on corporations to manufacture content like that and pretend that they are like that in just for money, obviously, just for money.
I mean, it's like a necessity. It's like almost like, oh, we had an apple tree, back in 1700, and now we have an apple orchard that is owned by a company and gives their employees, it gives their their corporate employees 401ks. Like, yeah, it's horrible. But at the same time, it's like, how does it function without that element of making money and making growth? Like the world that we're in, at least in the United States, is that world. So nothing that we have can remain pure. It can't. Even sculpting, even music, even anything that, religion, nothing is safe from the system that we're in. It can't be.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't know if there is any sort of solution to it except for just what we're doing, which is talking about it. Because
Yeah.
like that's the only way, you can really. And this is one of those reasons where I never felt, or maybe not never, maybe sometimes, but I never really felt guilty about the content, even though I post content that is very critical of a lot of things. I don't feel guilty about it. Like whenever people
I do.
criticize me for it, I'm like, fair enough. That's a good point. Like I agree with you. And still, I will continue to talk about these things because I think we need to bring our ideas to the table. Really, like what else do I have other than my thoughts and sharing them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think this is one of these situations where I think the more we talk about the loneliness of being a content creator, the difficulties of social media, and just what it really means to to be a content creator, because you're still, while you are, so many people have talked about this like brand, like you're the brand and you're
I hate
like,
that so much.
yeah, oh my god, yeah, but it's true,
Yeah.
you are the brand, but you're still a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much pressure to be both the brand and the content producer and the director of lighting and the whatever, like you're doing all the things behind the scenes, and you're also the image. Like any corporation ever, like will have like teams, literally teams in place that are like, the face of the company versus like the background stuff and whatever. And that is obviously, that's because they can afford it, etc. So there's a lot of, asterisks
Sure.
that come with this. But at the end of the day, you're still, like, as a content creator for the vast majority of your career, until like your career takes off, you are all the things, and it's a lot of work. Like I it's a lot of work.
Yeah. No,
It's a lot
it
more
is.
work than people think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like I said in the beginning of the show, like there's nothing is sacred anymore is sort of like the vibe that I get lately with everything. It's like nothing is safe from being shared or manipulated or whatever. And I feel like the more that you give people, even if it's fake, even if it's a false prism of your life, the more that you feel like, well, all I am is this little cog in this giant wheel, and I'm actually not free at all like I thought. And that, I think, can be a depressing thought.
Yeah. Oh God, that's such a good point. I never thought of that, but that's like, it brings so much. Yeah, because you're sort of becoming this character
Of yourself,
that,
which is like
yeah,
even worse.
which is a character you create, and you think it's also sort of, the whole idea that social media makes it so that you're your own boss. So then you are your own boss because you want freedom. You don't want to have a boss tell
Everyone
you what to do.
hates their
You want to be
boss.
able to, yeah, you want to be able to do what you want to do. And then you become a
You
content
hate
creator or
yourself.
something, and then it's so much worse. And the freedom is gone because you realize, oh, I don't have a boss. I have 1,000 bosses
It's
that
like
all
joining an
tell me what they
MLM.
want.
It's the same thing. It's like you join for the freedom and you become more entrapped than you've ever been before. And you're like, oh my God, how did
It's
I
a
get
different
here?
kind of thing that you never really like prepare for, and you wouldn't know what it is until you're in it.
Yeah.
But you can't really post anything you like, or you can, but it's not gonna land, and you're gonna waste your time on it. And
Yeah.
I think lots of content creators end up being forced into a niche, and I know so many of them, like, who have done, a certain niche, and then every time they post something else, or it's been years for some that I watch that have tried to pivot into something else, and it's not easy. It's
Yeah.
not happening. Their numbers are very low. There's people with like half a million subscribers who just try to pivot and be like, okay, I'm kind of done posting that sort of content about myself, and I want to post this.
They
And
lose
their
everybody.
numbers are like so low because nobody cares about the thing that they care about.
Yeah.
And that also sucks, by the way, when you care about something so much and then you post it and nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's just gut wrenching because you think it just makes you feel so alone because you're like, oh,
Guess I'm
I
I'm
thought this
alone
was super
here.
interesting, and then nobody cares.
Yeah. Well, it's also going back to privilege. It's like it's a privilege to be able to make the choice to go, I'm going to make content for me. We've talked about that off camera a million times. It's like, no, I need to start to make content for my viewers. The content is not for my own personal project. It's for the viewers. I'm getting paid for it. But at the same time, if you have enough money from a different source, or you've made a bunch making content for, you know, a certain niche, and then now you have the moment has come, I'm going to make stuff for me. Like PewDiePie is an example of this. Now he still makes content for his viewers and whatever, but he started to do this like philosophy stuff once in a while. I mean, he has like $100 million plus like a year coming in from his, you know, all his various things. So he's now feels comfortable enough to be able to, I'm going to talk about Aristotle in some of my videos, and some people like it and some people don't, but it's like, it really, like the average person, as we've talked about many times, you don't have the ability to even make these choices, and that sucks.
Yeah, and it starts to really like make you feel like you're forcing yourself to do things. And
Sorry.
and with people who are successful, I think it's this feeling times 100, because like they have to keep doing the successful thing in order to get successful. Like if you notice like, oh, this video did well, you know, when I was dancing and I was doing this, I got to do this again and again and again and again because this is what people want. So if you want to be successful, you got to do that again and again. And for someone to reach millions of subscribers like that, I can only assume just how, you know, you get fed up with the same thing. Like you get fed up with it.
Yeah, we need variety. I agree. I think it's rare that someone, you know, even if you're like, and that's the thing too, it's like our society's complete utter obsession with being passionate and purposeful with everything that we do. Oh, if you want to never work a day in your life, find something you're passionate about. It's like, shut the fuck up. The world would not function if we had people who are just passionate about things out there doing that. Like, you have to have people who are begrudgingly going to their job at whatever place, the car dealership to sell cars, you know, I don't know why I'm obsessed with cars, but like the mechanic, you know, he might like it enough, but like, you don't have to be obsessed with mufflers to, you know, be a human being in this world. And I think it's, you know, I think I'm a little jaded because that's a big talking point in self-help and personal development is like, step one, find what you're passionate about. It's like, that's not realistic, because if this advice does not apply to everybody, how can you say it's universal advice?
I agree. I hate that advice. And I also think while there are things that play to your strengths, I feel like that actually, like, that would be much better advice. Just like play to your strengths. Like, what is it that you are naturally good at and naturally can do a lot of, and you know, you don't get all that upset about, because that's, you know, I feel like the whole finding your passion thing, I was a victim to it because I was working jobs, and then I was like, I got really depressed when I was in Prague, and I was like, oh, I must find a creative career. This can't be for me. And then I found a creative career. And then,
Lo and behold.
you know, that also wasn't perfect. Guess what? Like, it's still work, even when it's creative and even when it's nice, it's still work. And after you do it like every single day, you no longer have the passion for it. Like, your passion is only a passion when you do it every once in a while. Like,
or do it for you. Do it for the passion of it. Don't do it for the profit of it. But it's so tempting because this is how you're supporting yourself. And it's like the, you know, the balance of scales, like the, you know, two sides. It's like, but I'm making money. Like, you know, Twitch, for example, dancing. Sure, I'm sure he loves dancing. Do I think that he loved dancing every single day for people on TikTok? And whenever he went on a show and they said, dance now, like that was the time he felt, oh, I want to do it now? Probably not. And I don't think that's a fair thing to put onto anybody. But if it's making you money, then it becomes that other side of like, well, this is the way I support myself. This is the way I have freedom in the rest of my life. But then it's a cycle of, do you really?
and it's like so important to just make your life about more than work. because at the end of the day, work is just at least that's the way I see it now. Having tried the passion, having tried the corporate, and having tried like a million things in between, I have come to realize that anything you do for work, it's work at the end of the day, and it just brings in a paycheck. And then that is, or like the question is like, what do you do with that paycheck? Like what, like what is the point of this work? Like
Yeah.
is, because you can do anything, even force yourself, even do things that are like close to impossible sometimes, when you have like a purpose like behind it, and if you don't have like other things in your life, like I whatever, I want to go to this to see this play, or I want to go on holiday here, or I want to do this. If you don't have those things to do in the evenings, at the weekends, in your holidays, whatever, like what are you working for? It just starts to lose the meaning. You start to lose like the purpose, really, like you start to just work for the sake of work, and that's not,
It's not
it's just kind of,
sustainable. It might be okay short term, but it doesn't.
it's
You
just a
can't.
grind if you
Yeah.
if you don't have those like joyful things to look forward to, like friends, family, whatever is that you enjoy doing that you can do, like it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, bring in that paycheck and don't worry about the passion all that much, because the passion dwindles on a daily basis.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what attracted me to Gary Vee in the first place, because he spoke. I already had, it's like when you, what's it called? I forget the word. It's a term where it's like you look for what your worldview is already. It's you go out in the world and like you consume, like if I was to consume Fox News, I don't agree with that for the most part. So I'm like, okay, this doesn't apply. But if I was to watch, an ABC, newscast, I might be like, oh, see, I was right. Yeah, I'm onto something. Like you search out what you already believe, like your worldview. And what was the point of this? This is the part where I start to over-explain things and it doesn't come to a conclusion.
It was related to Gary Vee.
Gary Vee, yes. Okay, exactly. Thank you. So he would talk about, other people who want to be on a tennis team. Literally, he used the word tennis, which I thought was like so relevant to my life because I was, a big tennis player when I was younger. Not big like in good, but in my life, I did a lot of it. You're going to miss out on making money and succeeding at life. There's some people in this world who want to join a kickball team. They want to play on a tennis team and a tennis league. Basically like what losers. If you really want to make it in this world, you got to grind and take that second job and do whatever. And I was already struggling because I felt like I didn't have those outlets because I don't know if I was afraid or I felt like I couldn't afford it really and I shouldn't do it. So instead of like looking at that and going, I'm really missing being a part of something bigger than myself that's not related to work, as opposed to looking at the hard thing and going, I've really isolated myself here from friends and from activities. I need to get back into it. I found Gary Vee speaking to that type of person and going, you're right, I need to grind harder. And, watching his motivation, I think almost blinded me from like my body telling me that, hey, something's wrong here. Like but now looking back in hindsight, it wasn't that I needed to grind harder and to, that wasn't the problem with my success. It was that I never wanted that in the first place. So no matter how much grinding I do, no matter how much more money I make, it's not making me happier. I need to find out other things like the tennis league and accept that if I'm not an exceptional person to other people, that's okay. That's the real thing I need to get over. And I'm trying.
And I think this is where it's very damaging, this hustle mentality that Gary Vee has, and he has pushed it a lot. Like Gary Vee said something like, I haven't taken a holiday, I haven't taken a vacation for like, guess what? Like last year he divorced like his wife, or his wife divorced him, whatever. Like, oh, I wonder why. Like if he never makes time for his family or never goes on holiday with them, like whatever, I don't know exactly what happened. He never came out to explain the story there, and that's just one of your open people. I don't think he
I'm
was
so
all that open,
open,
to be honest, but like
yeah,
he spoke a lot about how he never took weekends off. He never took, like, he was grind. But like, I'm sorry, but money, it's a currency. You you trade money for something. Like,
Yeah.
money in itself is meaningless if you just have a lot of it and you're just sitting on it. It's nothing. It's just paper. It's not even paper anymore. It's like virtual in bank accounts. Like, it's nothing. It's a currency. Money is meant to be traded. You're meant to use it for things. Like, if you don't take your money and put it in a holiday, and if you don't spend it on your wife or whatever, your husband, your children, yourself, like, buy yourself jewelry, buy yourself like the nice clothes, whatever. If you don't trade that money, then what do you do with it?
Yeah, it's
Like,
paper.
what is it good for? If you don't get to enjoy your life. And lots of people will say, I've heard this a lot, like, oh, because you got to save and save, and then when you retire and stuff like that. What if you don't get to retirement age?
Exactly.
What if this happens?
What if you're
like
ill?
this guy, like Twitch? What like, you may not get to retirement. It may not be the case that happened here. But what if you die before retirement age? Like, that could
get
also
hit by a
happen.
bus,
Like,
for God's sakes. Yeah. Like, you never know.
so it's not like you can't just put it off forever in hopes that maybe someday you will have the time to enjoy your life. And also, if you spend 60 years of your life not enjoying yourself and never like giving yourself any like little luxuries or whatever, like, you're gonna be in a serious habit. Imagine going to retire and then you don't want to do it because you don't have the habit, because 60 years of your life you spend them in a certain way.
Well, here's my other point of this, or the other side of this. My theory on Gary Vee, and I don't know him, obviously. I don't know much about his personal life, but I think he might have, and this is what I think in my case too, what was happening was people weren't inviting me to things, or to join a club, or to join a group. So instead of dealing with that, because I didn't want to look at that as to why that might be happening, or what was wrong with me and how I'm not interacting well with people, that I create an entire narrative of my life where I don't have time to do those things. It's almost like you don't get invited to the 8th grade party. It's like, well, I have another party to go to at my other school. My boyfriend's at my other school, and you make it up to like, keep your ego protected. But I have a feeling like, I don't know if he was like a popular kid. I doubt it, just kind of seeing how he is. But I think it becomes a way to block yourself from having these, interactions with people, or being a little bit more vulnerable. And it just makes it an excuse. It's like, well, I'm grinding, I'm hustling. And it's almost, you're doing it to protect yourself from experiencing life, because grinding at a job, as horrible as it is, you don't have to look at yourself very closely doing that. And people aren't going to look at you and go, wow, what a loser. They're like impressed by it. It's a virtue in the United States, at least. So it's the perfect cover, but it makes you depressed as fuck in my experience.
Yeah, it's not a full life if you're not using your years for things that are enjoyable. That's just not a full life.
Yeah.
If you're just working, or if you're just doing one thing.
But it might be because there's nothing
enough.
else going on in your life. So now it's like, well, this is the outlet that I have, is to be an entrepreneur or whatever. But it's like, you got to look at the truth of that and go, is this what I like? Or is this an excuse to not deal with why I don't have friends calling me to hang out on the weekend?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, at some point in your life, you gotta take the reins and just go like, okay, well, it's my life. How do I want to make it?
That's where I'm at. I got my little pinky on the reins. I'm trying to grab it. I'm trying to get on it and ride away into the sunset, but I got a little more work to do. And before we go back to this CBS thing, we've paused for 20 minutes. Okay, Phlogistina, is that right? Phlogistina?
Phlogistina. That's interesting. I love the picture.
Yeah, I like it. Very old school. Very, very 1950s, maybe? from what I can see. They say, do you have P.O. boxes? I made a little desk sign that says you are worth more than your production value. I'd love to make some for you both. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
It's so
That's
sweet.
nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. For
I don't have a PO box.
I just got one, but I have to go to the actual post office and get the number for it. But I have made the purchase because I'm going to put my business stuff there on it from now on, so that there's like a separation between like, because if you know, I don't know, whatever. I want to have like more separation from my business than I do now. So I will have one this week. So maybe I can send it. If you send it to me, I can send it to Cam.
Oh, no, it's okay. You can send it to my college. I'm not there, but I will be there in January.
That'd be awesome. Cool. That's cool. That's awesome. I like that.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much.
This is what I have to say.
But like, if don't feel any pressure to send it internationally, by the way, because it's kind of far. It's kind of far to the UK.
True. This is what I say to Phlogistina.
It's okay to cry.
Oh, Phlogistina.
From Alchemy Phlogiston. You are smart.
Wow.
I have no idea what this
Dang.
is.
Do we know how to pronounce this name?
No.
Wait. Phlogiston. I just put it in the Google, where you can listen to it. Phlogiston. Phlogistina.
Ah, Phlogistina. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you want to DM me on Instagram, hold on, I'll bring it up. It's Kia's World YT on Instagram. Hold on, let me get it up. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. And then if you want to follow me too, that would be cool as well. Just pitch myself like, while you're there.
Unfollow her.
Unfollow me, please.
Unfollow me. Why do you even follow me if you're not already on my Instagram?
My book.
Why do you follow me if you
You
don't
don't
already own my book?
There you go. Thank you again. Okay, now we're going to go back to CBS World and finish this.
Loved
thing.
all those greens on your Instagram.
Thank you. What, the celery?
Yep.
Yeah. I was being mean, but I thought it was justified.
They deserve it.
I got a crazy comment from someone who's a medical medium fan the other day, and it was like an essay about like how he's, the genius messiah. I'm like, all right. I'm like, seek help, not from the medical medium though.
Like a real medical person.
Yeah, some real help. Oh my God. Okay, here we go. Uh-oh. Hold on, ban this sex account. Okay.
He was a positive, shining ray of light.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama wrote on Instagram, quote, Stephen was an incredible force, someone who radiated kindness and positivity.
Again, okay, not to pause it 2 seconds in again after a 20-minute delay. Someone who radiated kindness and positivity. What message does that send out to every other fucking person struggling with negativity and real life thoughts? That's not acceptable.
Negativity. I am not struggling with negativity. Negativity is struggling with me.
Yes.
No, that's true. I feel like it's just very one-dimensional when someone is saying, "Oh, this is all he was, just a positive, kind person." It's like
That's not enough to be, I think.
we're not just the one. Like I'm sure that, for example, there'll be people who would also describe me like this, and I'm pretty sure there are people who will describe me as a bitch, and I'm like okay with that because I'm a three-dimensional person. I'm not the same, like, with everyone. If I hate someone, they might pick up on it. Like,
Yeah. And that's okay. And it's just like, I think even when it's a compliment like this, obviously it's meant to be a nice thing to say. But I think when I read this, I go, so if Michelle Obama was writing my, Instagram post, which she never would, but if she did, in this case, it would be like, she doesn't have positivity and kindness because she tried to explain her negative thoughts to somebody. Like, I just feel like even after his death, we're picking out the wrong part. it's just a sort of a letdown. It's just like, I get it. I understand why they're trying to honor his memory. I get it. But it doesn't really help the next person.
Yeah, and this is why I don't think we have done enough talking about mental health, because people like this is now, this piece of news is happening now, and the reporting is still very like behind on, it's not. Yes, we have some awareness of it, but I still don't think it's enough. Like, this is not it, if that makes sense. I feel like there's it's just it's a small, like, I don't know, it's going kind of falling through my fingers. I'm annoyed that he's just this incredible force with radiated kindness and positivity. Can we just talk about him as like a real person?
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about him as if he's a Disney character, like, I'm trying to think of one. I don't know. What's a character? Woody is such a positive light in the story of Toy Story. He is such a positive force in the franchise. Okay, but Woody is like fucking, an idea, not a real person who goes home after the end of Toy Story's over and goes, and like has his kids and a wife and has to deal with bills. Like, it does feel like someone who's not human is being described here. And I guess you could say, well, he had superhuman capacity of positivity. It's like, did he? Or maybe he felt the pressure of that and couldn't function with it. It's disappointing. And before I move on, I want to say thank you to Dominique LeBleu. Dominique says, hi, ladies. I'm new and I like it here. Thank you.
Welcome, Dominique. We have lots. We have plenty to discover.
We're old and we also like it here. Sometimes. I'm just kidding. This is what I'll say. This is a non-parasocial way.
I love you.
I love you too.
I love you too.
This is what Dave Hollis would say. Okay, this is taking it too far.
They truly have it all.
They truly have it all. That's how Dave responds to everything.
Yeah, I will say I agree with I can't say your name. Speak truth to power.
Speak truth to power. I think.
We, the collective, are avoidant of negativity. The only thing we allow is men's anger. We praise that, and only when it's channeled correctly. This is such an interesting comment, because, oh God, so many things in there. But one of the things that I think we should absolutely talk about is, and we have this case here, but it's the men's mental health. Like, the rate of suicide for men is a lot higher than it is for women. And I think it all comes down to this, what you're saying, which is that men tend to not talk about it. They're avoidant of talking about it. And I've noticed this so much. Like, men just don't want to talk about their, like, I will be asking someone, like, about, the girl they like or something or whatever. And they'll be like, oh, it's just private. Like, I don't, and I'm like, why? Like, it's fine, you can talk about it. Or they'll be like, it's just so complicated, like, I can't tell you. I'm like, why? Just tell me. Like, tell me, I want to hear everything. I want to hear if you're struggling with this. I want to know if you're doing well. I want to know all of it. But they don't talk about it. Men, at least in the general sense, it's not everyone, it's not all men, okay? But men tend to do more like activities together. And like in the college that I'm at, I can see them, they're constantly playing pool or like whatever, going out drinking, but no talking. Like, there will be no, or the talking is not like from like heart to heart. It's just sort of like
camaraderie,
logistical, like, like, here's what we're doing and where we're going, and we're, like, or banter or something. But it's very rare that I see men actually like open up. It's super rare.
this is something that I've been thinking a lot about, and I haven't talked about it because I don't know exactly how I want to present it yet. But, you know, we've been talking about Jordan Peterson on and off, here and there, comes up. And I don't know much about what he said in the last couple of years, you know, so I'm not saying I agree with him as a person, as a whole being, but I think he does have a point a lot when he says, you know, we look, and a lot of reporters will ask him, and there's one specifically I saw recently that I was like, wow, that's actually a great point. When a reporter asked him something about like women have been oppressed. Women have really been oppressed and have really had the shit end of the stick in life forever in the history of the world. And, you know, at first blush, I'm like, hell yeah, agreed. You know, we really have gotten the worst of it. And he's like, what about all the men who went to war? I'm like, you know what? That's actually also very like fair and honest and relevant. It's like we expect men to do the jobs, to do the duties that you know women don't want to do, or just to do the ones that humanity needs to accomplish where we've gotten. And as much as I like to, you know, say like, well, men today, you know, in my life tend to be this way or that way, as a whole, it's like men are making the buildings a lot of times, you know, building them, physical labor, you know, activities. They are the ones that are, you know, in the coal mines. Yes, there are women too, but the majority, like if we said, you know, teachers, for example, who are the majority women, all teachers, you know, that's whatever, like who cares? That's not an important, you know, career field because it's just women. There would be upheaval. Like you wouldn't be able to say that. But because like we go construction, who cares? It's men. It's like, that's important too. And I think because that's sort of the narrative of life right now, at least in the United States, men probably feel like, yeah, I don't really have a place to be honest about my feelings, perhaps, because no one values me really anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's also down to this sort of the way that men are socialized is different than the way that women are socialized from the early childhood, from infancy. Boys are told, you know, to toughen up, to be tough, to like what, you know, the whole toxic masculinity thing, to just be a man. Like, you know, this is what men do. We work and we, you know, bring whatever, like we support our families, we support our wives, whatever, like, you know, the traditional sort of toxic masculinity angle. And I think when you grow up, I can only imagine when you grow up being told toughen up, toughen up, toughen up, this is important, this isn't important, this isn't important, you learn that, you know what, I might as well not say anything because what I'm going to be told is to toughen up, and like I've got it, like I understand the concept. So, you know, what's the point? Because they're not listening, they're not telling me anything. And I think this is maybe part of the reason why they struggle even when women ask them, because when I ask them, I don't think they don't want to share. I think they would like to share, but I think they feel uncomfortable to share because they think it's socially unacceptable for them to pour their heart out to me. Even though I'm there asking, I can't imagine a man in his 30s would be like, yeah, I grew up 30 years being told to toughen up and just like, you know, whatever, and now I'm supposed to just open up. Like it's not gonna click in his mind. It's like clearly not socially acceptable to this, you know, like, yeah, I think this is it. And I think it's part of that narrative that has, unfortunately, it's just very, very strong, and it's very hard to dismantle it. And it's going to take, if you ask me, it's going to take another generation of young boys being socialized differently, hopefully by more aware parents.
And I agree. And I think it'll take longer. I think a lot of history repeats itself, and like cycles that we broke through, you know, 2 decades ago are back and centuries ago are back. And, you know, traditions are like, we need to return. That seems to be a narrative I hear a lot. We need to return to the family values. We need to return to whatever. And maybe there's some truth in those things, like to a point. And now I'm not someone who's pushing like gender norms, not whatsoever. But I think we should not devalue men because women also want to feel equal and be a part of things. And I think that's a wrong move. And I've definitely been a part of it in the past too. And I'm going to try to move forward and not do that. Like for women to come up, you don't have to pull men down necessarily. And one of the things I was thinking about personally for myself is when the pandemic happened, I got laid off and I was panicking, obviously, as many people were, about what I'm going to do for work, what am I going to do for a job. And for basically a year, I struggled, but I, freelanced and I did things, and I lived with Steven, and he worked full time. And so I was able to take that year and work on myself, get into therapy, start my life over essentially. And not one person said, I'm a freeloader, I'm a loser, I'm this and that. If Steven would have done that and I was supporting him, you know how many people would have told me, my girlfriends would have told me like, oh, you need to dump this guy because he's just mooching off of you and whatever. And I think that's so unfair. And how would that make you feel? Like I felt like, okay, I have this time to take care of myself and no one's really judging me for it because I'm a woman. But if it was a man, it'd be like, oh God, like men aren't allowed to take that time to, with the support of a woman. It's very rare, or it's looked down upon for sure, to take that time and try to, take a break.
Yeah. It's definitely seen like in a negative light. I remember, and this is not necessarily the same conversation, it's different, but when my friend had a baby, both of them are my friends, and she said that she took something like 3 months maternity leave, and then he took 3 months paternity leave, and somebody in the circle was like, wow, that's so amazing that he would do that. Yeah. And he would just take paternity leave to take care of the child, of the baby. And it's like, well, yeah, but like, why is it amazing? Why is it not just standard? Basic? Why is it not equal? Like, why shouldn't it be equal? Because like the conversation was around the fact that she could have taken 6 months and him 0. Mm-hmm. And basically he was like, I also wanted to spend time with the baby, like, duh.
Yeah, it's your child as well.
And everyone was like, oh my God, Ryan is amazing. And while I agree that Ryan is amazing, it's why is it not normal for men to take time off to spend time with their children? Why is it not normal for men to take time off to if they're sick or ill or whatever?
I don't even think it's a gender thing. I really think it's a capitalist thing. Honestly, it's like, well, we don't want 2 people taking off time, and the woman can do that job. We need the workers working. And I don't think it's men. I think men would gladly want to be with their kid for the most part. I don't think we allow them a chance to do that, where they aren't now being, sacrificing their income to do it. We barely have maternity leave in this country. Like, there's no government sanctioned maternity leave at all. So if a company decides they don't want to give it to you, go put your kid in daycare week 1, week 2, or you take the money that you're losing, you just have to take the L for that. And I find it, as much as we like to blame each other, it is always, in my opinion, most likely a systemic issue. And that's what it comes down to always. It's like, I think men and women would get a lot better if we had equal pay and we both had time for maternity leave and paternity leave equal. Now that would give a lot less infighting between the 2 of us, like men and women, about who's doing more, who's bringing money home more. If we had more equality in those things, I think a lot of the issues that we have fighting it out against each other would go away.
Yeah, I agree. And it would be just a bit more nice to live in society, I think.
Yeah.
And it would also help women in the workforce, because then, if a woman was pregnant, the automatic response from employers would be like, you're not employable.
I worry about that.
Yeah, I worry about that too. Yeah.
Because I'm at the end of, not the end, but I'm 31. So, I think I don't have kids yet. So I think a lot of potential employers would go in their mind, even if they don't explicitly think it. Like they would think, well, she might be in that range where she wants to have kids in the next 2, 3, 5 years. Do we want to take on an employee like that who's going to have to require 6 months of our income going towards someone who's not producing output? Now, a man would not get that same consideration. Like, oh, he's a 35-year-old man. He ain't going anywhere, you know, for...
No, in fact, it's like rewarded, because if men are fathers, it's easier for them. They get more promotions, they get more, what's it called? Like when your salary raises and, yeah, but it would be just a lot better, I think, for everyone if it was a bit more equal, and it wasn't seen like such a, oh, you took time off to be with your child, what a loser, like, you know, like it wasn't judged like that. And oftentimes it's by other men, because I don't think women judge men for that. I never seen a woman judge a man in a negative way for that. I've only seen it in a, wow, you're so amazing as a dad.
I think we might be a little bit, you know, in our own echo chamber there, just because I think, you know, in the conservative world more, and I say like conservative in a general stance of like more religious upbringings, I think they're very much more traditional values where it goes back to man brings money, woman does home and child. And so thinking about things, you know, if the woman's duties is home and the man wants to come home, that's not okay. Like your role is your role, my role is my role. Maybe I'm, you know, I don't.
Yeah, you're right. You're probably right. I tend to be in a more like
progressive
sort of echo chambers. That's true.
Yeah, I think because they preach that, you know, on the weekends, and it's not just Christians. It's, you know, in many religions, Muslim, Jewish, like a lot of them have the same, like, get married, have children. The woman will take care of the children while you go to work, because I think that brings in more followers, you know, to the church or to the temple or to the mosque, whatever. Like that's, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. The other day I was thinking, this is off topic a little bit, and this is also Joe Rogan's horrible take on paternity leave that I think you'll find funny. But I was like, you know, why don't atheists have a church? You know, like you could just say that you have, you know, you're atheist and you're going to practice as long as you know, maintain the requirements of the tax code. You could technically have a place where you go and like practice atheism, you know, whatever that would mean. And I'm like, there's no incentive to go and pay money to do that. With the Christian and the Jewish and any other like major organized religion, or even, you know, cult or whatever, like the incentive is either like eternal life afterwards, and paying money now has become a way to guarantee your, you know, ticket there in a lot of these places. And it's like, you can't convince people who aren't emotionally invested like that to come every week and do something that doesn't make much sense. So I'm like, yeah, they really figured out a way to just keep people giving money and being controlled. That's what it's about. And I, you know, that seems obvious now, but like, you know, it's not just religion, because you know, we could use the rules to our advantage. And I'm saying our, like, I'm not in a group of atheists, but I don't practice any religion, but I'm not inspired to start a building. And, you know, people need that incentive, I think, in a way.
This is interesting because I lived, as you guys know, I lived in Scotland for a good chunk of years, where churches have been transformed into pubs and clubs. So, you know, I think there is a place for it. It is in Glasgow on 22 Hope Street.
There's one in Pittsburgh too that's like an old church that became a brewery. It's really cool inside there.
Yeah, it's so cool. I would say like the church that if there is one in specifically, I'll send the link. That is amazing, and it's always got this like ring, like this neon ring around it. Just for some reason, I'll show you. Oh God, okay, I'll send you this link. You can show it in the chat.
Thank you. In the meantime, let me play this 18-second clip on Joe Rogan just so we hear what he says.
Crazy is that Pete Buttigieg during this whole time is on paternity leave, and and you just want to go, listen, man, I understand it's hard to raise a child, but isn't that supposed to be for the person who gave birth?
It's crazy.
Do
Yeah,
men
you're
take
right.
paternity
Now
leave?
over.
Do
Yeah,
men
you're
take
right.
paternity
Now
leave?
over.
Oh, there's more. Okay. But basically he's like, no, in my company, there's no paternity leave. It's only for the person who gives birth, not for the man to spend time with their kid. That's ridiculous. He's like, how does that make sense for a boss to have to pay for somebody who's not actively working to make
That's
me money?
ridiculous. And then they go like, oh, you have daddy issues. It's like, well,
Maybe you have child
whose fault
issues.
is that?
Maybe my dad has daughter issues. It sounds more like.
That's the church. It's always got this neon sign. Do you see that on top of it?
Oh, it's like a hula hoop.
Yeah, it's always there. And
Interesting.
sometimes has different colors.
It's like a little halo. Huh.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Beautiful. I love it. I'm impressed. I'll go. I'll be right there in 17 hours. We can go have a drink.
Have a pint.
Have a pint. Okay, let's finish watching this thing. Wait, where did it go? Oh my god, did I get rid of it? No way. Yeah. Okay, wait. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. Back on task. Here we go.
And from Questlove, I have no words. May his family find resolution in this dark time. Sometimes the images seen by the public don't match the reality at home, according to Dr. Laura Erickson Schroth.
A lot of times people are really struggling with things under the surface that other people, don't know that they're struggling with.
That's a cute little son of a twitch, I'll tell you that.
Thank you so much. Boss was the father of 3. He met his wife, Allison Holker, on So You Think You Can Dance. They kept dancing together on social media. The couple had just celebrated their 9th anniversary over the weekend. And last month, they spoke about wanting to grow their family.
I think we would love to start trying for another one. Oh.
Yeah.
In a statement to Entertainment Tonight, Holker called Boss the backbone of our family, the best husband and father. On Instagram, Ellen DeGeneres said she was heartbroken. In May, the day before her show went off the air, DeGeneres paid tribute to her friend and DJ.
Something that I'll always remember is that you gave me a place where I can just be myself. You know what I mean? I love you so much.
We love you so much. You're a fake DJ, but you're a real good man. You're a real good man. We'll be back.
A real good man is what many people are saying. I can't say that I know him well. I met him a couple of times, and it's true when they say a pillar of positivity. It's just, this is what so scares me, guys, is that it's such a painful reminder that you never, ever know what people are going through. Just last week, there were videos of them putting up the tree with their 3 children. They celebrated their 9th anniversary, talking about their love for each other. And 2 days ago, released a dance video. I don't even know what to say about this.
It is shocking.
Okay, again, like this is a public figure doing things that he's required to do, most likely, like posting, about their life. That's not a conclusive evidence that there was, how could we have possibly, he just put a Christmas tree up. It's like, are we that, that is like X equals Y. Oh, if he recorded himself crying, then, now it makes sense. What?
Yeah, and if that happened, he recorded him crying, he would have lost 20,000 subs in no time.
Yeah, it would have been like, I'm too uncomfortable. I'm not what I'm here for. I'm here for...
This is not what I'm here for. I'm here for the dancing. Oh.
Exactly. So it's just... these people are, in my mind, and maybe I'm giving them way too much credit, these are the people who are supposed to bring these conversations to the public discourse, right? Like, the article is here, but we're going to, talk about it, in a way that, is a little bit more educated. But no, it's just like fucking the most basic response possible. And maybe, they're an older generation, so they learn differently. But it's like, you've met people from all over the world. You've seen millions of stories come across the desk that you're literally sitting at, and you haven't gotten to the conclusion of life is complicated. This is not an easy thing to explain.
Yeah,
No?
and this is why I say, I feel like we think that maybe it's because we talk a lot about it, because we talk very openly about our mental health issues, and we think that's how it is.
And I still
in
have
the
a cap
world,
on
and
mine. I
it's
don't say
not.
how I really feel all the time. So don't think this is the only level. I only share, I'm like sharing what's publicly appropriate for me. But this is like not my entire thoughts because there was no way I would share that because that's a sacred thing to me. Like, okay, certain people in my life know that. Publicly, I'm like, okay, I'm more open than he was, you know, but like, I think it's weird if it's not weird, but it's like, it's okay to have a certain privacy as well. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. And some of these feelings probably come from the fact that you feel like other people would not be receptive and they would not understand, or they would be put off, or because
100%.
that's how it is.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality of the situation. I'm so sorry. And I think we have the most amazing people. Like, I'm even reading through the comments and stuff, like, you guys are amazing. But I will say, like, I've met people in my real life who have been put off by that and be like, you know, they couldn't get out of the conversation faster. You know, when you meet someone and you're like, oh, I'm fine, you know, like what, and they're like, oh, you know, like let's, and they just do anything they can in that moment to get out of that conversation.
Yeah.
And this is sometimes where I feel like, you know, because it's always like, I've always talked about this, and like, you know, real life does not compare to social media, etc. But this is where I feel like social media is sometimes better, like, because like you get to meet people who are like you, who can understand you, and you don't always have that luxury in real life, unfortunately. And you know, so I can't blame you that you feel like inappropriate to share some things that might be a bit darker, or that might be a bit more difficult to digest. And also, you don't have an obligation to share. But I think some of that comes from the fact that you know for a fact that the response will not necessarily be a good one. And there's nothing worse than just trying to pour your heart out to someone, and that someone not knowing how to get out of there. Like,
yeah. And I don't think that, you know, people who hear something that doesn't align or doesn't make sense, or they don't know how to respond, I would love some, and I don't have the answer, and I would love some education from a program like this, or from a program, some sort of social media, where it's like, if you are approached by someone who is vulnerable and is saying, hey, I am feeling suicidal today, or I attempted last week, or whatever, what do you do? What is the correct way to move forward? Because one option is, oh, I'm sure you'll get over it. Okay, that's the way to like just be neutral and go, oh, I don't know. I think it also, there should be some education about, okay, this person is a coworker. This person is an acquaintance I don't know very well. What do I do? This person is my mother. This person is someone who had control of me at some point, and now the tables have turned and now is asking me for help. How do I deal with that? Like, there's 25 different scenarios, which I think would be nice to learn about, so that if anything ever happens, and I'm saying from a psychologist, not a dumbass life coach or something, you know, like someone with actual training in, like, you know, trauma and serious, you know, situations, mental health. Because I think I am lost without knowing what to do or how to help either. So everyone's misinformed. Everyone's fucked, basically, in this scenario. You're opening up and you're going to feel bad, and then the person receiving it is not going to know what to do and feels bad. So it's like, we're all losing here.
yeah, I agree. And it's like no good answer or anything, but I think that, you know, if people were to listen and just kind of offer support in that moment, I think it would do something. But I, like, again, as you say, there's no correct procedure like that you can. And I also think even if there was a correct procedure, it might not always, like, you know, be correct, depending on the situation, depending on the person, depending
Just
on
a
so
little
many.
advice would be nice.
But it would be helpful
Yeah.
to just have some education in that area, rather than just sort of, because like what you get then, it's people like like I'm sorry, but Mel Robbins, people like Tony Robbins, who are not related. They are not husband and wife. They are just sharing the same last name for whatever reason. But they target, or Teal Swan, and they target these topics and they make content about these topics. And when you are in a dark spot or whatever, and you Google how to get out of a rut, how to get out of depression, whatever it is that you want to Google, oftentimes you'll come across them, and their content is targeted towards, it's sorry, not targeted, it's like the content is supposed to get people in a sales funnel. You're just essentially, they're pretending that they have answers when they don't. None of them has education in mental health, and what they do is just put you through a sales funnel. They're going to start by offering you a free webinar or a book or something, and then you keep watching, you fall in love with them, and then you start buying their courses and going to their conferences that cost a lot of money, and then that's a never-ending spiral.
Yeah.
And that's because there is nothing else that comes up when you look up how to get out of depression, or like there's nothing except for the NHS, whatever. I don't know if this applies to you, because in England you get some websites from the NHS, but you're not going to read those, because it's much easier to click on a video by Mel Robbins that is 3 minutes. It's like, this is how you
heal
cure
your trauma
panic disorder.
Yeah, today in 5 easy seconds. Yeah.
3 seconds, and you just 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Anxiety's
over.
done.
And then, when you see a long ass website from the NHS, you're not going to read that instead. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
it's hard. And I see some comments saying like, well, do we need to stop judging? It's like, okay, but that's a judgment on me and her. So it's like, okay, you're doing exactly what you're saying that we shouldn't do. And I always find that to be so funny, because it's like, well, we feel validated. Anyone who does critique, feels validated for what we're doing, for whatever your reason is. Like some people, critique or criticize, I'll say the worst word, criticize celebrities because, well, they're public figures, so who cares? Or I feel okay to criticize self-help and the media because I feel like it's for the greater good. And people in the comments or people, whatever, that don't agree with that feel justified critiquing or judging someone who is critiquing because they don't agree with that. But it's still a judgment. So saying that humans shouldn't judge goes against human nature, in my opinion. We judge everything. We judge, like, walking down the street. Is that bus going to hit me or not? We're going to judge whether this person is telling you the truth or not. And that's a part of life that is helpful and could be hurtful. But just saying people shouldn't judge, therefore we're going to stop suicides, that is stupid. I'm sorry. That is a very low level analysis of the situation. And we're trying to get to how can we as people one-on-one get a little bit of help. That's what I'm not trying to solve suicide. And I don't think telling people not to judge is going to be the answer. And it's almost a waste of breath to even say that.
And if anyone needs permission to judge, here you go. Judge away. Honestly, like, I am not afraid of judgment. I think the way I look at it is just, if I can dish it out, like, I should be able to take it. So here I am inviting you.
Yes.
Go on and judge. And to be honest, like, I don't think this might be different culturally, because I am... Oh, she's gone. Okay. So let me wait for her to say that. But yeah, basically, what I was gonna say requires Kayla to respond to. So okay, this is interesting. Thank you, Heather, for saying that. So the answer to how to approach it is, one, validate their feelings, let them know what they've been feeling is okay and that you believe them. Validation sounds like that makes sense. That sounds difficult. I'm sorry you're struggling right now. Yeah, and if it comes from the heart, it's so helpful. And I think I saw another comment that had like the var 1 second, I'm looking it up. I don't know. I think I lost it. VAR. If you can write that again. What was it? Was it number 1, validate, and then Heather, there she goes. Sorry. Appreciate their courage. Speaking up can be a challenging step. Let them know it's a good one. Also show you're there to support them. Thanks, Heather. This is super helpful. Yeah, I agree. And then I think refer, was it? Who was it? I'm so sorry, I don't remember, but I saw the comment earlier. But refer, yeah, if you can refer them to a psychologist or to a professional in general, that would be good. Yes, there you go, Heather. Refer them to skills and support them in figuring out what would be most helpful to them. Help is available. The refer step is most effective when formed as a question. Yeah, thank you so much. This is very helpful. So, okay, what I was gonna say, Kayla, before you left.
Sorry. I was dying. I was like very much needing to pee.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I forgive you. But basically, I was gonna say sometimes culturally it might be a little bit different because I grew up in a culture where we are sort of more encouraged to critique, and the French are like that as well.
Mm.
And there's some relationships between Romania and France, so maybe that's where we get it. I don't know.
Americans
Also, we
hate
have
France or hate French people. That is like not like a universal thing, but that's like a kind of a joke that Americans can't stand the French.
What? The French gave you the Statue of Liberty.
They don't care. They're like they're judgmental. They don't like Americans.
They're mean, right?
Yeah,
Like,
they're mean. They're very mean. That's like the bias or the I don't know, stereotype.
yeah, and that kind of like is connected to this because we are not here in Romania and in France. Like, we are encouraged to like critique things. Like, if for example, this was one thing that I noticed when I moved to Britain. I didn't These things are so like ingrained that you don't really know they exist until you see the other side.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I would go to a movie and I would come out of the movie and my initial response would be like, okay, so here's what was wrong with it, but I also liked, this thing. And my ex was like, why are you like criticizing it so much? Like, if you liked it and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, you're supposed to, like, it shows critical thinking skills that you can look at both sides of something. Like, even when you're liking a movie, you can still pinpoint, it's not perfect, it's got some flaws here and there, but I still like it. In Britain, it's not like that. Like, in Britain, any critique is like very frowned upon. Like, oh my god, you say something like that is, slightly has a tone that isn't perfectly positive and lovely, and everyone's like, oh my god, why does she hate me? Like, and I'm like, that's not the situation here at all. Like,
Toxic positivity was born in the motherland of America.
yeah, I mean, of course.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I think culturally it's interesting to me because, like, I never grew up with that idea that if I criticize something or if I say something negative about something, whether it's a person or a product or something, I never grew up with that thought, oh, this is a bad thing, like I shouldn't be saying. Well, sure, there's
But you don't
levels
have
to
you
this.
don't
Like,
have
I
that.
would never say that to a person, like, oh my god, you're so ugly. But I also like your personality. Like, I would not do
Yeah.
that. But like,
Do you have that
there's
saying
levels.
where it's like, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all?
No.
That's like a very popular saying, not so much anymore, I guess, but like when you're growing up, it's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's the golden rule. It's like, treat people how you want to be treated. But the undertone is, positive things are accepted and negative things are not, unless it's like an extreme case. And then it's okay. But really, for the most part, don't critically think about anything, and definitely don't express it if you critically think about something.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. And I don't honestly believe that is the right way to go about it, because I
agree.
think with everything, if you can look at something and are able to at least articulate to yourself or to others what is going well and what is going not so well with that thing, what that actually does in the grand scheme of things is that it makes it so that you get better of that thing. Like, if you look at a photograph that you took and you just go like, well, this photo is good, but like it's not quite straight and it's not quite whatever, la 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 la. Like you see a bunch of things wrong with it, even if you like it. Then the next time you're gonna take a picture, you have those things in mind and you get to get a better picture.
Yeah.
So feedback, critique is not, it's not in itself a bad thing. It's actually really, really helpful.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. But I think in the United States we really value natural ability, like natural talent, someone who's born better or born, probably comes from our British heritage as well, like the Queen, like is born just better than everybody else. We really value that, like especially in sports. If someone works really hard, that's one thing, but like someone who's born really good or naturally taller for basketball, or like Michael Phelps has like a longer wingspan, so it's like he's meant to swim, and we really like those stories a lot. And sort of the people who are like second place, third place, that just worked really hard to get there and might not have that, innate ability, we sort of bury them and go, like who cares, And I don't know if it's an American thing or like a human thing, but I find a lot of the stories that are told, it's like if someone's good at something, there shouldn't be a whole lot of effort behind it. It's almost like the natural beauty. And that's what we really the classic beauty. Like that's the and maybe it's not even true. It's like all, photoshopped and bullshit, but that's what you want to appear like, that you're not doing critical thinking and feedback and whatever. It's just some people in this world are born better and some people aren't. And the people who are born somehow better than everyone else, naturally, we should listen to those people.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. What about those 10,000 hours of practice? Is that not a thing that people hear?
Yes, but it's like you're already good at it, or you're already naturally good, I think, or take to something like I don't think like the 10,000 hour people get celebrated the same way as someone as a savant who gets on the piano and knows how to do it from the ether. That is what is really exciting to people.
And I think there's something really like weird about that, because I think if you're like born with some talents and some abilities, why would you put 10,000 hours in it? Like you wouldn't. You'd be like, whatever, I know this already. Like, so there's a nonchalance about it. I mean, of course, it's kind of a seductive idea. Oh, you don't have to do anything. You're just born with it and you just got it. It's seductive, but it's seductive because it's a fantasy. Like it's not real.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like a fairy tale. Like the reality is we all learn from
all these narratives
to walk and to eat and to talk, to everything we do. It's something we learn.
Yeah, it's like any of these self-help people who are like, I came from nothing. And it's like, okay, you're married to a Disney executive and you're, like you have all of the nannies in the world that are helping you. But the narrative that we all want to believe is that she really is a single mother living in a shack that somehow becomes the CEO of Maybelline. That's what we're all like, oh, just the one that can do it. And it's not even possible. But we still will just wait and buy up all the crap that people give us because we're so hopeful that it is true.
And that makes us like real victims of it too, because people have noticed that like, oh, this sells, like rags to riches, let's go. Like what can you make how sad can you make your story sound to make it so that we can sell the story easier? Like,
or romantic relationships. It's never, oh, we spent 20 years working on this relationship in therapy to make it better, or counseling, or we went on and off and we had rough patches and we didn't love each other for 4 years. We didn't talk to each other, but we got back together. It's not those stories that are told in media, and I get why, because they're not sexy, but like it's the
love at first sight.
Love at first sight. Naturally, I just knew. It's like, oh God,
Yeah, and I would say about that, I have come to realize that the men that I have the most chemistry with, that I immediately like, oh my God, like I see them and I'm like, oh, there's something, like it's just, you feel it instantly. It's in the room. It's like those men, the reason I have that chemistry with them is bad. Like it's not good. It's actually because they are super familiar and I'm used to toxic situations and I feel at home in toxic situations. So I have come to realize that I need to kind of if I feel that intense chemistry, that intense like, ooh, this is just like family, like,
Sparks.
oh god, like run, like.
Yeah. Yeah. And you need to judge yourself and them, I think, accordingly. You don't have to be mean or horrible, but yeah, judge the situation and not feel guilty about it. Like, oh, I felt sparks with this person and now I'm questioning it. What an asshole I am. It's like, oh my God, you're doing critical thinking. Please just relax. It's fine.
No, it takes so much work because like you're so drawn to those things that you feel like you know them. Even when you realize, and this was literally in therapy that I realized I had no idea that this was the case. But
Yeah.
even in those situations where you feel like, oh, it's fine, I've got it, I've been in this situation, like that's what you're thinking, even if you're not necessarily aware of that. That it takes some work to actually just be like, no, actually, you know what? It would be better for me in the long run to step away from this, no matter how difficult it is for me to just step away from this in the moment, because it feels so compelling and exciting. Like,
yeah,
you know, you can immediately start to draw your future with that person. It's like, no.
Well, think about how you feel when you look at an ice cream sundae with like the whipped cream and the sprinkles and the cherry, and it's like your favorite flavor, and you look at that, you're like, oh my God, I want that so bad. Or think about looking at a plate of broccoli. You're like, oh God, like I don't want that crap. Like I know I need it, but I don't want it. It doesn't look appealing. Now you can convince yourself, okay, I need to eat the broccoli and resist the ice cream, but it doesn't mean that that ice cream's better for you because you're compelled to want it more. It's just you've over time learned like, no, like we're attracted to certain things. It doesn't mean anything deeper necessarily. It could just be I'm hungry and that looks appealing, but I know I should eat the broccoli. And I'm not saying that as like, broccoli, you should eat ice cream. And then I don't mean it like that. I'm just as an example. I'm not trying to give anyone toxic diet advice. But you know what I mean? Like if you ate that every single day of your life, either one, honestly, it wouldn't be good for you. But just because you're attracted to something or someone does not automatically mean it's your brain's giving you a signal that this is right long term.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this goes for everything, really. Like, you know, there's I don't want to like derail the conversation too much, but like it's just kind of you always have to stop and think like, is this good in the long run? And like oftentimes, whether it's with men or drugs or whatever, if you do have the opportunity to think about like what's the actual impact of this in the long run, it will put you off from a lot of things. And that's
Agreed. And I also Phlogistina. I forgot. I'm sorry. I agree. And that's something that I think might be a cultural thing, maybe like an American thing, meaning like America really looks down on critical thinking. And so when you have it, maybe it comes off as that self-sabotage, because I also have those same feelings. So I feel you on that, because I'm always like, wait, am I over analyzing this or am I analyzing correctly? And I think there's a happy medium, obviously, with all of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's a happy medium for it. Like it's not healthy if you go too far into the negative, and it's not healthy if you go too far into the positive. And this is one of these cases with Twitch. You know, like I mean, we don't know what happened, so it's, you know, it's impossible to really speculate, and I wouldn't even want to. But like, but the fact that he posted so much positive content made people think he was one-dimensional and he was just a positive, happy-go-lucky person, and that's that. And you know, there was more to him than just that. So there's always a happy medium, and it's and any extreme is actually bad.
I wish that like, and I guess I still struggle with this too. Like if there was a thing where it's like, if your desire was, if there was someone online, right? A human being that said, I turned blue, like my skin turned blue with polka dots once I decided that that's what I wanted to do. Like I put my mind to it and I transformed my skin by my mental toughness into blue with polka dots, I think 99% of humanity would go, he's full of shit, or this person's a liar and they dyed their skin or whatever. And you'd be like, okay, well, that's not really possible. And this is like a farce. I wonder if that's what it is for positivity all the time, people. Like, it's really not achievable. There is absolutely no way you can do it. But we think because we're like, well, it seems real, it seems like they're happy, that we are like, we indulge in that, you know, fakeness of like, well, maybe they do know something I don't know. And I think I play into that too, where I'm like, well, you never know. You never know. Someone could become blue with polka dots. But I don't think, you know, these people sitting there are 100% believing that this guy was, you know, positive 24/7. And that's sort of the problem.
Exactly. And it's we are a product of our society, even if we don't want to admit it, or even if we don't want to be. We're still a product of our society, and these things continuing to be talked about in the same way over and over creates and recreates the same loop, the same society that is clearly making people go to extremes, because it's not good. And I don't know, like, it's just very difficult also because of the pressure that we all feel, like, to not, and it's not necessarily just the content creator situation, but just anyone. You want, you know, when you meet someone from your childhood or whatever, like, if they ask you how you are, you're not going to tell them the truth. You're just going to be like, oh yeah, I'm great, you know, you're going to do the highlight reel thing, you know, I'm doing these things, like, blah blah blah. You're not going to go in depth and not going to tell them the reality of it, because you feel like, oh, they haven't seen you in a while, so they need to know the good stuff.
Yeah.
And if you tell them the bad stuff, then they're going to think it's all bad. So you kind of, you know, you don't ever mention the bad stuff as if it's, oh, it's just small and insignificant, while the good things are really big and significant. And unfortunately, I just don't think that's the case. I think the oftentimes we like to pretend like the good things that are happening are more significant, because, you know, if you are like this guy and you get like the opportunity to do all these amazing things and go on Ellen and whatever and mainstream media, that sounds amazing and stuff, but frankly, I worked in media. Like, it's just the thing that happens at the end of the day. It's just a thing like any other.
Yeah.
Except it comes with some positive sort of positive repercussions. Is that what I'm thinking of? I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like, it comes with some advantages, I guess. You know, you get more clout, or by getting more clout, then you get more money. So the idea of the future possibilities might make that moment in time feel positive.
Yeah.
While the negative things are like, oh, if I can just minimize this, if I can just make this go away, then everything will be good. But unfortunately, it's not going away, because you're not a robot that you can just, you know, control alt delete. It's just.
But I heard that you could download from source. So shouldn't you be able to control alt delete your issues?
You should try the mango frequency situation.
Yeah.
I've heard fruits are excellent for your mental
The mango frequency.
The mango frequency. This is what they say about the mango frequency.
I don't really care what the FDA says.
He doesn't care what the FDA says.
Wow. Okay. Well, don't buy food from that person, or drugs.
Yeah, or a medical device. Okay, let's finish watching this last 30 seconds, because I thought that their conversation at the end was sort of interesting, or the most interesting part. So let's go back just a tiny bit, just to the end of the discussion. She's like, oh, he posted that he got a Christmas tree. I'm shocked that he had other feelings that weren't posted online, you know? I don't know, but that's what she said, and now they're gonna make their comments.
Their 9th anniversary, talking about their love for each other. And 2 days ago, released a dance video. I don't even know what to say about this.
It is shocking.
Yeah, we always say
very upsetting.
you or someone you know needs help.
Yeah.
But in a case like this, it seems like no one knows that there's need.
Yes. And that's what scares me, Tony.
He's a streak of merriment.
That's what scares me. How do you know when someone needs help?
That's why you have to
They
check
say
on
you
your
have
strong
to ask. That's exactly our next point here. If you or someone you know needs help, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. The number there is 988. Again, that number is 988.
Okay, so basically it's like he was, again, pushing the narrative. He was a man of merriment and check on your strong friends, but no follow-up as to what that actually looks like in actuality. It's just something nice to say at the end of a news segment when much more nuance would be nicer.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I see someone asking a question like, what were the signs? I think that is sort of a misconception. I think, and I don't know if mental health is like the right way to think about this in the sense of if I was in his shoes or if anyone was in those shoes, I don't think like, oh, did he have a diagnosed condition would actually answer any more questions whatsoever. I think it's like a human condition and people struggle at different levels with all of this stuff, just living daily. I think mental health is like almost physical health. Everybody has it at different levels. Some are severely ill and some are not struggling at that moment. But at some point, we're all going to die physically, right? Like we might not have a disease now, but we know at some point we're going to get one. I think it's the same thing with mental health. We all are probably okay or at different levels, and eventually we're going to be worse at some point with age. So I don't know. I think like, it's not like, oh, did he have schizophrenia? Like it's not, I don't know. Like I think everyone's sort of on a spectrum of things, and some people take action and do something like this, or people go seek help, or it's almost like getting the flu. This is going to sound crazy, and I don't mean it's not conspiratorial, but like some people die from the flu at, more older age people do. And you're like, what happened? Why would they die from the flu? I don't know, the complications, it happened, they died. Or if someone young, sometimes it's like random. It doesn't make any sense. I feel like the same sort of mentality could apply to a situation like this, where it's like, it doesn't have to really make sense. It just happened. And I think there are some reasons as to why we can look at, the pressure he was under that we can see now in hindsight.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, I know I mentioned it before, but I don't mind repeating myself. But I think people want to make sense of it just for their own comfort, because if you can make sense of it and then you can discount yourself and you go like, oh, this is my situation, so I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
I would never, it would never happen to me. I'm fine.
Yeah, that's wrong. That's a bad way to think about it, I think.
And it's, it's human nature again, so I can't really blame it. But at the end of the day, I think mental health can be debilitating, and it's just really, really important. And I don't love this idea of like just go check on your friends. It's like,
I hate it
because it's so
much
dismissive. It's like, what, like, that's not doing it. Like, it's not enough to just go and check on your friends. Like, we gotta start changing the way that we look at this as a whole, as a globe. We need to start looking at this in the way that it is, which is, a thing that is so powerful that it could literally make you want to end your life in one day. Like, even if maybe you were okay yesterday.
Yeah. And there's different ways people end their life. I mean, people end their life, like in this case, it was like a 1-day event where it involved a firearm. That's a very extreme case, a very concrete, but people get involved in drugs and risky behavior and all sorts of things that, could ultimately lead to a death. And we don't call that suicide, but we call choices in life. People make choices not because they're bad people, because they're just, that's just what they wanted to do because they're evil or something. It's like there's a million different roads to go down at any given time, and everything's about choice and luck and bad luck. And I think that's what we're seeing here is like a million little things put together, and maybe there was a bigger thing that happened and put it over the edge. We may never know that. And it's not really our business to know that, but it's for the people who are still here. How can we better help someone like him in the future? How can we better help ourselves? And how can we continue to live the best way possible for us? What that means for us individually and us as a society, I think is I don't want to speak for you, Cam, but I think that's like our kind of message here today.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just in general, if we can create, even if it's small, if we can create like a society in our own lives, like, you know, if you have two friends or if you have one friend or if it's just social media friends or whatever, but if we can create a safe space for people to actually talk and just share, and you know, it doesn't need to be seen in any particular light, it doesn't need to be judged, or even if it's judged, it's fine, like, you know what I mean? If it's a safe space where people can share like we shared today, just kind of like, you know, it is what it is. I'm not asking for your guys' help or anything, but that's just what it is. I'm just telling you what it is in case maybe you don't know you had it, and maybe you felt like me and you had no idea that there could be help out there because you didn't know that you had a situation like I didn't know I had a situation of depression. So, you know, I know it seems like it's nothing, but if you spend, you know, some time working on that sort of thing, and in your group of friends, you make it safe and other people can share, maybe they will hopefully do the same. And, you know, maybe slowly over time, this is not going to happen overnight. Like, this is going to take a long time for us to change the way that we look at this. But I think it's doable. And you know, just everything comes with more awareness, like everything, every change, every systemic change comes with more awareness of what is wrong and where is it that we can actually make an impact, and where do we need to make an impact, and so on. So I know it sounds very unfortunately I don't have, you know, like a Tony Robbins solutions. It's like there's 3 steps, and just, you know, there's no 3 steps. It's just
there's no supplement you can take to improve your mood so that you don't want to kill yourself. I'm sorry to say that doesn't exist, and it will never exist, because it's not just one factor, it's a million. It's like, how does life happen? How did we all become born? It's not just, well, one person, my mom and dad met eyes and they connected and now I'm here. It's like, okay, were they in the same place? Were they, you know, did they get transferred at the wrong time? Did the train leave? And then you guys had sex on the right day and it happened. It's like, explain how you made it here now. You can't. And I feel like the same thing with any of this stuff. It's just like we try to put meaning and make things simpler, because that's how we are. Humans like put things in patterns to help better understand the world around us. And I just think that that's sort of a fallacy. We can try, but it's not going to be the whole picture ever.
Yeah, and it will take a lot of patience and a lot of being open and vulnerable, and it's a slow process, but like that's the way, like, and literally that's the way. And I think it makes such a difference, because if there is one person that is really struggling and you don't even know that you're helping sometimes, you know, just by being there or something, it, you know, it can save lives, really, literally.
Yeah, I think the biggest advice from me, who's nothing, has no expertise in anything, would be what you said. And to piggyback off what you said, is like, sometimes sharing your own story, what you're comfortable with, might be enough to make someone else feel comfortable to share either to you or to someone else. Because it's like, you're not being told what to do. You're seeing someone, how they are in the world, and emulating it. I think that's something that humans do very well. It's like, you see something that worked, you go, okay, I saw Cam and Kia talk about their feelings and no one, you know, threw tomatoes at them and they got shut down and canceled and never came back. Maybe next time that I have a chance to, I might consider it. And maybe it's even subconscious, but I think, living in your truth, whatever that means to you, the most you can, could help. potentially. And maybe that's enough. I don't think you have to like prescribe someone how to help them, you know, as like a lay person in life. I think just being yourself and trying to be honest as much as you can is what you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will say, I wrote this down from a long time ago, but this is probably worth a whole other video. I know we're like kind of at the end of our time. With the media specifically, I think I agree with a lot of the comments that say like it's similar to like thoughts and prayers. My conscience is free. You know, you guys check on your friends, but we have no, guilt from us as a media conglomerate in this situation. And I think the media, what they should be thinking about is two things, twofold. One, how they make content about suicide. We on the news see murder constantly. Every local news station, every national news station, there's at least one murder story, right? A day, daily. And statistically, you're probably more likely to commit suicide than get murdered. And I don't know if that's 100% true, but I'm almost positive that murder is much more farther down on the list of deathly illness or causes of death a year. It's like 40,000 deaths a year from suicide and like, I don't know, like 5,000 from murders, yet we are inundated with murder stories. I think either we should be more honest in our coverage of suicide, and it doesn't have to be individual cases because there's a lot of media ethics along with that about privacy with suicide. I tend to have some disagreement on that. It's like, if you don't get privacy because you were murdered, but you get it when you kill yourself, how is that an ethical choice? But, okay. So that's one thing they could talk about at least, or discuss amongst themselves about how they proceed with coverage, because I think people think it's so rare and it's really not. And then glamorizing it. CBS, I don't know it's CBS specifically, but NBC has Dateline, which is an entertainment show about murders. Don't you take any responsibility for that and how you glamorize, murders and whatever, but then are silent on any suicide or mental illness, where it's like not just like mental health awareness, take a self-care day, like, let's be honest. Let's talk about veterans killing themselves. Like, let's talk about the rate at which young people are killing themselves and why. Like, we just, as a society and as a media outlet, I learned this in college. As soon as it becomes like, if it's a crime scene, but then it turns out to be a suicide, you do no longer do stories about it for privacy of the family. And it's like, I just don't know if I agree with that anymore in a world of speculation and conspiracy theories. So that's two things I would lob back at them and go, well, how about this? Before you tell us to help
good point.
each other. Thank you.
Excellent point. And also, I would say, like, there's so many like TV shows about serial killers and things like that, and they're definitely seen like in a ooh, sexy kind of, what's his name, Ted Bundy, and things like that. It's just, we talked about, this is not about the same topic, but we talked about the Anna Delvey situation again, like a fraudster. I was even like, oh my God, yay, Anna. Like, I still follow her on Instagram. So,
our hero.
But seriously, like, we're kind of, there's something about these things that is maybe the mystery around it, whatever, that makes it so
intrigue. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many books about, detective stories and, all these,
the mind of a serial killer,
topics being very like attractive to us. But if we are to talk about suicide, then suddenly demonetized. You can't talk about it. People have come across I've come across so many like different ways that people talk about it, like calling it unaliving yourself, or just all sorts of things, just so that you don't say the words, so that you don't get demonetized, because it's so bad that how can you possibly say things like that? It's something, we have placed this like dark shadow almost like on this topic. And I don't know, I mean, I studied the topic like in depth. I studied the suicide for Albert Camus, who's a French philosopher. He wrote a book called The Myth of Sisyphus, which you might have seen. It's the guy who's pushing a boulder up the hill.
Oh, okay.
So the whole thing about that is that Sisyphus is damned, and he has to, that's his job, to push the boulder up the hill. The boulder gets up, goes back down, he needs to push it again. So then the philosophical question becomes, should Sisyphus kill himself? Because like, what's the point of his life? Like, it's absurd. Like, he just has to constantly push that boulder up the hill, and then it goes back down. Like, there's no success in that. And
interesting.
Albert Camus said in that book, at the end, he said that Sisyphus considers himself happy doing that. And then there was another French writer who his name is André Malraux, and he wrote a book called The Human Condition. And in this book, there was a different situation with these people who were part of the resistance. This was at war in China, and they were part of the resistance, and they were captured, and they were about to be sent to death by being burnt. They would be thrown into the fire and killed.
Yikes.
And for Malraux, suicide was a solution to that. They had cyanide on them, so they took it. Some of them managed to take it, and for him that was like taking control of their own death, and that was an empowering way to look at it.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people think that, honestly.
Yeah. So this is interesting, because these are two people who think about it and wrote about it, and actually led, the way that we see this topic, and they see it so differently. Like, this guy sees it as an empowering thing. You're taking it for yourself, and you go like, this is what I want to do. And this other guy says, you know what, no, just, even if this is absurd and I have to keep doing the same thing over and over, suicide would mean that I am taking myself out of the race. So I'm not even trying to fix the absurd. I'm not even trying to come to a solution. I'm just taking myself out of it. So it feels cowardly to one of them. And it's interesting lots of people have thought about it, and I don't know. I don't know.
And it's okay not to have a conclusion, I think, on it too. It's just interesting. And when I read, and I don't read it often, but if I ever read like something from like Greek times, it's like they all had a lot of the same problems that we have now. As different as our worlds are, a lot of the moral questions that we all sort of face, like, what do we present publicly? What do we present privately? Is it, true authenticity to be this way? Or, am I even alive? Like, what if this is all an experiment or something? Like, these thoughts are not 2022 thoughts. They're all thoughts, I think, that very early on in our humanity that we started to have, and that still plague us today, because as much as we have answers to everything, we don't. And as much as you have faith in something, you may still be curious or think about these things still. The things we can't figure out. Like, why are we a small planet out of, a zillion things? Like, how do I still go to work, I still function, yet I have no idea why or what any of this means. And it's like, to try to think like, oh, that's not a worthwhile thought. It's like, well, people for millennia have thought these things, and I think it's worthwhile to think of them too.
Yeah, and it's an interesting idea that you bring in religion, because religion actually, at least Christian, I'm Orthodox, but I think it's the same Bible as the Catholics and whatever.
I think so too.
It demonizes it. You go to hell, according to the Bible, if you kill yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not, well, like, it's not accepted in the Christian religion. I don't know about other religions, to be honest, and how they see it, but why? Like, why?
Well, it makes sense why that's there, because if everyone killed themselves, there would be no one left to work and to do the things that are required of humanity as a group. So I think if someone was to create a religion, putting that in there makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, religion is a whole thing. I don't even, oh,
Yeah.
God, I say and then God.
Yeah.
I was called out in this because I made a TikTok in which I was calling out the whole divine feminine thing that it pisses me off when I hear, oh my God, divine feminine. And I started with like, for the love of God, and somebody called me out on it. But like,
that's funny. I say, oh my God, like more than I should. And I'm not a practicing religious person whatsoever. I say, bless you when someone sneezes. But to me, it doesn't mean anything deeper. So it's like, oh, it's just a word that you say. I don't know.
Yeah. Same for me. I even responded to her. I was like, it's just an expression for me, when I say for the love of God, because I don't believe that there is a God. So there's that.
Yeah. The whole, I see in the comments, some people are talking about the contagion thing that I was talking about, like the reason why the media doesn't talk about suicides on a more often basis, more, I don't know, call it more daily basis, is because the theory, from what I remember in college, was it'll glamorize it to the point where everyone will want to do it, or a bunch of people who are on the edge or the fence or are, depressed will commit suicide, or I guess you don't say commit suicide anymore, will kill themselves. And I think that that doesn't, to me, hold up. I don't know. It's like, well, I'm like, let's test it. Like, as if I'm cool with putting people's lives on the line. Like, that doesn't sound fair. But at the same time, it's like, I think the same thing could be said for murder, glamorizing murderers. I mean, we had this is off topic sort of too, but the Boston bomber, the guy who survived, the younger brother, the Sarnev guy, on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, right? After he was captured. Like, if that's not glamorizing, mass murder, or in that case, like murders in general, terrorists, I don't know if it would be the same, and it's just not in the public discourse as much as it may need to be to fix it or to find a solution. And maybe it does nothing, but if it does nothing, why not talk about it then more?
Yeah. And I think maybe this has something to do with the Bible, because we're very religious,
always does, right?
And it's not well seen in the Bible, so it's kind of like, oh, hush hush, like let's pretend it didn't happen, like.
It's interesting in Islam, isn't it, like that you can, like, don't you get like virgins if you do kill yourself for like the jihad, like it's actually celebrated? Isn't it kind of weird? I don't know. Okay, now we've gone too far.
I know that if you are good in your life, you're supposed to get like 100 virgins when you die or something in Islam. That's what I know, but I could be wrong, because
I'm very ignorant. I'm a very ignorant person. But like, when they do like the suicide bombings, like they're almost like inspired to do it because they're gonna go get the outer, like, heavenly reward. But in Christianity, it's the opposite. Like, you don't get it.
No, yeah, definitely in the Bible, it's not okay. It's not okay for sure. I know this one.
Yeah.
But if anyone is a Muslim, let us know.
Yeah. And then Jewish people, I believe, don't believe in hell or heaven at all. I
don't know that either. I'm so ignorant about this.
Me too. But it's interesting. I want to know like what everyone thinks, because it's like, I don't know, like what, not that I'm going to change my mind, but I would like to know like what your thoughts on everything are, really. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let us know, you guys, if you know about Jewish and Islam. And I don't know, do Buddhist people believe in they believe in reincarnation, right?
Do Buddhists? I know Hindus do. I don't know about Buddhism.
Is it not the same? Oh God. Okay, I should stop talking. Let's stop talking.
Okay. We'll come back and do our what you need to know about religion special next.
Yeah, we'll do some research first, because clearly we're both like out of our depths here.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know in the hate comments below what you think about all of what we just talked about. Anyways.
Or don't let us know if you know.
Don't let us know, actually.
It's all good.
I'm sure we'll figure it out someday.
Yeah. But thank you guys for being here. This was great.
Yeah, thank you. I think, again, like, I don't, And I think as long as there's trigger warnings at the top and you're being honest about what you want to discuss in a certain setting, you know, in this case, it's the live stream on YouTube. I think it's not the worst idea to talk in this way. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it's all right.
So good.
It's actually good.
I would encourage people to talk about it.
Because it's, you know, it's not just you, most likely. Actually, probably 100%, it's not just you.
100% is pretty much everyone.
Whatever thought you have, it's not just you at any given time.
And whatever thought you have, it might not be you at all. It might be coming from other sources.
Might be your
might be
childhood.
downloaded into yourself from a mango. So. Sorry, but you know.
Yeah.
We are victims of our environment after all.
Yes. Oh wait, I hit the button, but it didn't play. Hold on. That's because I'm in the wrong spot.
The mango frequency.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I clicked it twice, but only I heard it the first time. Hi, everybody. Talk to you later. We'll be back some point
soon. Yes. If we don't come back anytime soon, which hopefully we will, we might. We'll have to decide.
Next week, what date is next week? Because next week is like Christmas.
22nd, but
22nd,
this is why I don't know for sure if I can do it, because I might be going to my home city, and it will be like a whole thing. But if we don't make it, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year,
Happy
and
Hanukkah.
We shall catch you in Happy Hanukkah and any other things that you guys celebrate.
Happy birthday if it's your birthday. Happy anniversary.
Happy Easter.
Happy retirement.
Easter for you. But yeah, we'll catch you in January of 2023.
Damn.
And we'll start the year with a bang.
Yes. We will clear our future.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here. I'm glad that we had this conversation.
Me too. I do as well. All right. We'll see you in the next time. Peace.
Bye. Peace and light.